You're listening to Funk with Fate, a show about being a body and cultivating pleasurable relationships with everything. And I'm your host, Mackenzie McCormick. This podcast will explore how our embodied experiences connect us to the world through astrology, philosophy, dance, magic, and anything that invigorates our aliveness. What makes us feel the most alive? Big inhale, big exhale. Now let's get grooving.
Ooh, ready?
Oh my god, I'm ready. It's actually why I wore silver instead of red.
Really? Yeah, I had a red top on and then I literally had to change it the last minute. I was like, it's too hot.
A headache.
Yep.
There you go, girl. And it's the fact that I wore green gems and you did green eyeshadow. It's almost like Mars isn't an earth sign.
It's almost like we both
planned
Mars isn't an earth sign.
Yeah.
Hello, honey. Welcome to the show.
Yes,
right now, it is like 12:20 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time. And it is Wednesday, January 10th, 2023. And at this moment, it is Aries rising with Mars up in that 10th house.
Yes,
exalted, sun, moon, about to be a new moon.
Yes, ma'am.
And today...
A balsamic one if you'd like. Not balsamic vinaigrette.
Oh my gosh, this is a really exciting episode, y'all. If you've not heard about the Spicy Rendezvous, this is the Mars series that I'm doing on the podcast, going through all of the Mars signs as Mars moves through that sign, interviewing, talking to an astrologer with that placement natally, getting to hear all about their life and what they have. And if you are not watching the video version, I would just, pop out of whatever audio you're in right now and go to the video, because this is the first episode that I'm recording in studio. And I'm so thrilled to introduce that girl, Edwin.
Oh my god, we broke their headphones.
We broke their headphones.
Scream,
yeah, maybe turn it down a little bit if you're...
but it is,
welcome to the show.
With my sis, Mackenziana. If you guys don't know me, my name is Queen Paradise, and the doll, icon, legend, astrologer, part-time bad bitch, full-time magician. And yeah, we're here in the Sunshine State. My midheaven is actually on the ascendant at 23 degrees exact. Doll behavior. That was very doll of her. She let me hang it, y'all. It was a high five, Mary. She said, cut the cameras, do that again, retake. But no, we're here to talk all things Martian, with a Martian rising, with a exalted Mars in the sky, on the midheaven of the sky at that. We're just here, lollygagging as the moon goes void. We
really went for the midday Mars new moon moment.
No, yeah. And it was just Mars hour, and it was just,
And it's also so worth mentioning, I know that I've said this before on the pod, but y'all know that these Mars episodes sometimes get rescheduled, sometimes things happen, sometimes the sky says, no, we're not going to do it this time, we're going to do it at this time. And that's life. And especially when we're recording in person, we were like, this day. And then it was like, oh, no, it's this one.
Well, it was really Mercury retrograding back to Mars that caused those issues. It was Mercury snapping my thumb that caused that issue. It was actually,
fingers.
Yeah, mercurial problems, mercurial mishaps, causing mercurial resolutions. And we're here on a mercurial day. Let's really talk about it. We're going to be speaking into a mercurial hour.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited.
You see, Bada Hermes, thrice the great, the doll, the only one, the realist, the first she, they, them,
Truly.
Honestly. We can't even get into that. But my Mars is in Scorpio as well, so a Martian Mars, present here. But yeah, personally, I'm very excited to get into the Martian.
Yeah, do you wanna let the people see the chart
while
you
you guys wanna see my chart?
Like the history. Give the history of Edwin.
Yes,
how you got here. Tell us all about your practice, who you are. Let the people know you.
We're gonna get into the BTS. So, like many of you guys know now, I was selected by Mars to come and serve eyeliner. I don't know what to say. Yeah! Just kidding. Here's my birth chart. Don't do nothing cuckoo because she is a Martian doll. Mars is setting on the other angle. She was born
so
a Cancer
angular.
moon.
Yeah, if you're
like, listening to the audio, my Chris Brennan moment. If you're listening to the audio, we have a Cancer rising chart.
We fucking
Thursday.
love Chris Brennan, yo. It's
Shout out my other Scorpio girl, Miss Chris Brennan.
Yeah,
really the one.
the
one
Scorpio
of one.
sun,
Number one, the only
Capricorn
one.
Mars.
You know.
Number one, truly.
We have, like he says, we have a Cancer rising with a beautiful, lovely moon in the first decante. Then we have 23 Aries on the MC, just like the moment that we're in right now. We're literally in my 10th house. We're literally hanging out in my 10th house.
We're hanging.
As you can see, the angles are very cardinal and very active. We have the moon in the first, Jupiter in the 10th, and then Mars in the 7th. Oh. Oh. Look around, everybody on mute. Bury that. Yes, no, I have a very, very cardinal chart, which is something that me and Mackenzie have spoken about a lot because she doesn't.
I am not a cardinal person at all. Like, I'm so fixed and so mutable. Like, my only 2 cardinal planets are fallen.
Oh, pick them up, bitch.
We gotta go. So being cardinal is so not a thing.
Not your vibe.
Yeah, and also shout out Drew Levante's Initiate course because literally the word initiate, I remember, and I even have told them this, like, I was so triggered by the word. I was like, what do you mean? Initiate? What the fuck? Like, this, like, get things going energy.
Simply commence.
Like, this get things going. I was like, what the fuck? And I love that course. I love Drew.
Shout out Drew. She was actually my TA for Austin's class. Sickening.
We love Drew.
Lovely mind.
We fucking love Drew.
Sickening mind.
But, like, that concept of, like, initiating, beginning, starting, getting things going, I just have, like, the weirdest relationship with it because my planets are fallen. And it's just, like, I'm just so much more fixed and mutable that cardinal energy is so, like, foreign to me. And so that's why it, like, feels so good to be around someone who's, like, very present in that cardinal energy. And your chart is so fucking...
She's too cardinal, girl. She
so...
really is, like, a fountain, you know? Like, and I do have fixed placements, too. Like, I do have my Sun and Mercury in Scorpio, but they all really just answer to an evocative, active, you know, I'm gonna make you react to me kind of Mars. I think that's been my experience my whole life, for good and for bad. Yeah. Which I think is also very Martian, you know. Sure.
Before we go any further, always want to put a trigger warning that this is an episode about Mars. Mars is a malefic, so that's not...
Mama!
Malefic planets bring us challenging things. Mars is a difficult planet to interact with in any way, shape, and form. It can get more comfortable with time, of course, but Mars, you know, deals with things like aggression, injury, illness, you know, violence.
All of the red hot things in life.
The red hot things in life. So at any
both
time...
pleasurable and unpleasurable. Like, literally not even that in, like, a... No, like, actually, like, think red hot things that the stove burns you and it's not a red hot cute thing. It's actually... Ouch. Open burning skin, you know?
It's a big ouch.
So when you really think of Mars, remember that it's like the extreme opposite of Saturn. If we're looking at Saturn as extreme cold, we'd be looking at Mars as like extreme heat, extreme measures, you know? Ones that aren't necessarily thought out because they're very quick and rash and you didn't see it, but you got the paper cut. Even that's simply Martian, you know?
Truly, that acuteness. The acuteness of it.
You didn't even see it.
At any time when you're listening to any of the Mars episodes, be aware of your body, be aware of yourself, come back to things if you need to, because it gets real hot and spicy in the Mars episodes, 100%. So Mars in Capricorn. This is, like, the most dignified Mars of all, because in my world, exaltation is better than domicile. And, like, this is malefic in malefic world. This is... the
answering to
the
taking order from
the malefic
that has already thought out the circumstance and situation that it's putting Mars in. Like, you really have to think about the underlying reason why Mars would exalt in Capricorn. Like, what does Capricorn bring? Like, it brings raw resource and a structured element to use that resource. Have at it, Gorge, you know, like, you're not in the swamps looking, you know, trying to sense with your sixth sense that Mars has in Scorpio. You're actually seeing, especially like if you look at the way the decans are formed, like from like the headless body where you would find that first part to the pyramid image where like you're building the impossible to the actual throne that sits in the impossible that has been conquered and built, you know, the things that it takes for you to enter those different phases of Capricorn
The pyramid.
Demand the blade, the iron, and the actual like having to give it all up to sit on that throne and also defend it. You know,
because you have to do everything,
and then you have to defend that which you have created from people who want exactly what you already have. Like once you sit on the throne, what does every single king or emperor or, you know, person in power do? Do everything to protect their power. Like turn Martian. Who do I have to cut off? What do I have to do? Like who's my like perfect assassin that's taking out, you know, everything that is going to limit the amount of resource in ways that I can make, you know, my kingdom function.
100%. Because then they've done all of this work to get to this place, and then you're like, oh, then what? I can't just enjoy it. I have to maintain it.
I have to protect it.
Yeah, I have to protect it, maintain it, continue to grow it, cultivate it, do all of these things.
That are Saturnian, which Mars only in Capricorn is able to do with, you know, a little bit of not messiness. Because if we look at Mars in any other sign, Aries, it doesn't even want to look at the instructions, you know.
No, what are instructions?
Scorpio, it wants to feel the instructions come from their third eye, you know. So it's really just like, that's really me as Scorpio. I'm like, I don't want to read it. I want to feel it. Like, tell me, you know, what does it want me to do with it? Whereas in Capricorn, it's like, give me something that actually is substantial and able to be taken from thought into actual physical Earth sign. Capricorn's an Earth sign.
Earth sign.
Manifestation.
It's very literal and very tangible in so many ways. Like you feel it.
Yes, ma'am.
And that earthiness speaks to this like deep foundation that you feel in it. That like this Mars and Capricorn is like, it's not just doing things like above the surface. It's like embedded in what it's doing. It knows why. It is rooted. It feels the purpose in everything.
If it's a night chart.
Oh! So let's talk about
sect. Let's have a conversation about sect. So, for example.
Yeah, so sect is day and night if you're new here, and planets perform differently based on their condition. And one of those conditions is, was it day or was it night? And the Mars is the malefic that is of the night sect, so they are happier at night because the night tempers this extreme, violent, you know, volatile heat, whereas Mars during the day, it's during the day, it's warm, it's sunny, it's hot, it's going to be exacerbated and really more agitated, whereas night really cools Mars down. And so it's not always, but it's generally pretty broad stroke that night charts are a little more comfortable engaging with Mars. That doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
That doesn't mean it's fun, but it's generally easier to engage with in a way that can be productive, constructive, and not as harmful. And, you know, Edwin,
because opposite to that, Saturn is the malefic of, you know, the day sect. So Saturn at night is literally going to impede, slow down, limit, hinder, delay until later age, everything that night charts kind of got going on, you know, like literally my Mars is configured to a trine to Saturn in Taurus. So it's like literally having to work with people who delay me, having to learn to work with Saturnian figures is also a huge part of working with Mars in Capricorn, because it ultimately answers to, if you're born at night, the planet that also hinders you. So you're literally, like she's saying, it's not really a fun, joyous ride. It's more of a ride that actually gives you like affirmation. Like Saturn's like, here you go, girl, like you got through the mode on difficult. Congrats. Like you turned 14, here you go. Like it's very that. It's definitely been the Saturnian and Martian experience mixed together. Because
it's the malefic in the space of another malefic. Because it's not, you know, planets of domicile, if you're in your own place, you have to clean up your own shit. And so you're responsible for it. You have to take care of yourself. But if you're in, you know, like exaltation, girl, you have somebody to ask for help. And in this case, it's the malefic answering to the malefic in a way that is so dignified. Because it's also, of course, worth mentioning that the opposite is the opposite of true. Because when Saturn is in the place of Mars, it's fallen.
Mama's going to the gig.
And
it's not, you know, it's wet. It's annoying. And then in Aries, it's burnt to a crisp. You know? So the Saturnian and Martian experience, like, Mars doesn't necessarily have the resource to give Saturn what Saturn's able to give Mars. Like it really gives like greater and lesser a whole different context when you look at benefics and malefics, you know, like what Jupiter's able to bring Venus doesn't. She can't.
You
get what I'm saying? Like Jupiter has to go to the moon to get
Mhm.
exaltation, not
Right.
necessarily to Venus. So you kind of see that same relationship between Mars and Saturn, whereas Saturn gives and Mars
There's so
just
much more.
takes. Yeah, Saturn's like, you know what, girl, like I have this great big huge structured plan that only you have the, you know, anima and will to complete.
Literally the energy, which is I think another huge thing about Mars and Capricorn, is that like the extremely Saturnian Capricorn experience of like having the plan, being willing to do it, and the longevity that takes. Mars is able to literally throw in this just energy and action and the ability to just go and to keep with it and to keep doing the thing.
I mean, if you really look at it, like, especially at least I have an early Mars. So like my whole life I've had this like self journey or like self race or like literally competing to be the best in like theater, art, like whatever it was that like Martians specifically ones who have a lot of sponsorship back to Mars, they really go through that like self inner like game on challenge, you know, like it's literally a life where it's not even necessarily circumstances that create the competition or the arena for Mars to perform in, but literally the self narrative that one might have like self-imposed on what they're doing. So like for example, like Scorpio's my 5th house, so I have a whole lot of Martian like ambition towards like my life goal and like how I use my artistry in my hands, but it's only through intimate relationships, Mars and Capricorn, that a lot of that gets affirmed or like developed because I create that intimacy with my art. So there's this really weird way like I'm a makeup artist, so I service women.
Could we tell?
Can we get into the mall? Can we get into the Martian liner? Oh my god, Mars wants to take me out! Oh my god, the gigs have begun, girl. You see, that's that fallen Venus in Virgo. That's that fallen Venus in Virgo, girl. Getting just slammered by malefics in both earth signs. Yeah, I have a Venus in Virgo. She answers to a Mercury in Scorpio, who answers back to who? Mars. So basically my whole chart is rooted to self like journey or like competition, I would say. And everyone that I meet literally in a workspace sees me as competition too. It's so weird, both like in astrology and makeup and beauty and performance.
That's
like,
a very Mars
anywhere.
in the 7th thing, like especially in Capricorn, like this high exaltation places that no one can like see you without seeing that you're someone
that
to
they
go against.
Yeah.
Because I will say, people forget that the 7th house is not just all cutesy shit.
Mama.
People be saying, oh my god, the 7th house, my husband, my wife, my partner, my spouse, and I'm like, bitch, that is
your
enemy.
enemy.
That's your open enemy. It's established that you don't fuck with each other. If it's contractual, you know you do not fuck with each other.
And it's Saturnian, babe.
You're like, let me hold that grudge.
It goes back to my 11th house, and in a lot of like open network spaces, getting intimate with people has brought that problem. Where it's like they want to like literally like take it and have it all for them, and it's like, girl, literally doing an 11th house service creates that want for intimacy, and when people get intimate with me, it becomes obsessive. Like it's that weird, it's very, very weird, because if you look at my chart, if you go back to it, where's the chart?
Oh, yeah.
Saturn trines both malefic. You know, like both malefics look an aspect of Venus. Both, literally, one is separating while the other one's applying. So like literally my experience has been like being that weird outcast, bringing something in and then taking everyone by storm in competition, be like, I am the baddest bitch. Like, hello, but I want to support each and every single one of you. I want to uplift every single one. There is no competition because I'm here.
You're like, it's really me against
I'm here
me.
to, yeah, like I'm like,
it's
girl,
actually me against me.
girl, I am my own worst critic. Everything you've told me, I've already heard from my own mind. So like, let's really not play this game because the chart doesn't want to.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. Like for example, I met Mackenzie in a 11th house situation.
Oh, let's go back.
Like we
let's go back.
Let's go back. Like
let's go back. So Edwin and I met at
Norwalk.com.
We met at the Northwest Astrological Conference in
Seattle, Tronomus.
Yes, last year, 2023. And had this whole moment where we were like, does you live in Florida? You live in...
Hello 911. And then she was like, I live in the same coast as you. And I was
literally,
like, oh,
we live like like just a little hop skip away.
I was like, what do you mean? And
Yeah.
we had a ball. We had such a ball.
And then we ended up going to the airport together. We literally ended the
She
weekend
said, get
together.
the fuck in the car. And I said, girl, let's go, sissy with
I
me.
said, we're going.
I said, can you drive? She said, yo, let's go. That's literally Mars. She said, let's go. Let's kick it. But it was an 11th house situation.
Yeah.
Like, it was literally 11th house that became a 7th house kind of moment.
For sure.
Like, that is literally my experience with humans, where it's like, it's my first time here, and you're like, girl, I know everyone! Like, Mackenzie's literally just bouncing off the walls, kicking with the wall.
Me,
kicking,
Gemini,
you know, like, and she's like, I'll come to this party. And I'm like, very Scorpio. I'm like, girl, I don't know them. I can't get invited. Like, if I can't come in. I literally vividly
This
remember
is so
going back to
funny.
my hotel room, because, like, I'm very Latina when it comes to that. Like, very, like, oh, if I don't get invited inside the room, like, bitch, I will not go in. You know, like, it's a brujeria loca. And then she texts me at, like, 2 a.m. She's like, girl, why the fuck are you? I'm like, girl, you did not come back for me. She's like, the door was open. I'm like, I'm not that girl. I can't be that girl.
It's so true, and it's actually funny that you mentioned that 7th house, 11th house thing, because I have ruler of the 11th and the 7th. But for me, it's so airy. For me, it's so airy. It's so Gemini. I'm a little butterfly that goes from every little fucking place. Like, I just be flitting, flying, popping,
You know.
going, like.
And it was
everywhere.
the first time that the Norwakiana girls were seeing, you know, a doll. So there was very much like, what is that thing? And I'm like, you know, let me serve a little mug for you. But we did have a ball. We did
Moment for the dance party.
Oh no, the dance party. I went downstairs. I was faded down. Like, I was 4 edibles in, girl. I had to take a fat nap. And I woke up and she was like halfway through the dance. And Miss Mom was on the dance floor.
I literally came up with like,
she gave choreo down. Like, I'm literally coming back from like the ethereal.
The graveyard.
Yeah, and she's literally like giving full choreo, full category, full ballroom tease. I was like, oh, Miss Mamas is in her tens, as she should. But it was so much fun.
Honestly,
I had so much fun.
Norwalk dance party.
I literally
moment.
just sat in the grass with Miss Mamas and just got turned.
Yes, Chantel.
It was very fun.
Yes.
It was very fun. It was very fun. And Marianne, you remember Marianne?
Yes.
Miss Mama with the skinty body, and the outfits were just so good. Are you going this year?
Yes, for sure.
I'm going.
Moment for Norwalk.
I'm going.
Moment for Norwalk.
I will be at the Pacino workshop giving real, like, I've really been living my Pacino fantasy. It's been
the
bad.
Pacino fantasy.
I've been
that's
living
so
my
real.
Pacino renaissance, like, not just the runner, you know, not the renaissance, but both.
But both.
Both.
Of course.
Yes,
The moment
yes.
for that.
It's, you know, 3 books of life kind of moment. Have you read it? You have to read it.
Yeah. I've looked.
She really gives prophetic, you know, if you want to live in harmony with the
absolutely.
sun, you
I was
know,
gonna
like,
say,
it's
no, the
very
word,
that.
yeah,
It's
so
very,
rich.
it's very like, I'm living my fantasy with the spheres right now.
Mm.
Back to Mars. Not
True.
Pacino.
Look back.
But Mars does rule sorcery, witchcraft, and very good magicians.
Yeah.
The
Mars,
ancient texts have said that.
Yeah, the ancient texts really go in on Mars, honestly. Like, that is one of the planets that is so interesting to see all of the different things that they write about. Because, of course, there's, like, the extremely fucking gory shit.
Mhm.
Like, slaughter and...
Every single one.
Yeah, murder.
Conquering of lands, like besiegement of places.
Beheading.
Using of Mars and exalted powers to take over thrones. Like,
Yeah.
when you really look at exalted Mars in history, it's only used to, just like, I mean, the current world situation, like, Martian powers and currents get
take over.
like a jolt almost, you would
They do.
see. And chaos just almost reigns, because if you look at the difference from when Mars was in Sagittarius, it was very like action based, it was very like religiously oriented, and like as soon as Mars enters a cardinal sign,
It's ready to go.
look at its opposite sign. Like, you have Cancer, fallen, so it's acting out of emotion. Aries, it's acting out of passion. Like, Capricorn, it's acting out of structure.
Libra.
And Libra, it's acting because it feels oppressed.
Yeah.
Quite literally. Like,
Yeah.
look at Mars in cardinal signs. Like,
It's actually so interesting. We talked about this on the last Mars episode, the Mars and Sag episode, because they were talking about how, like, that use of energy just kind of ends up, like, going all these different places and, like, starting and stopping and looping back to things. And one of the things that was said was, like, this isn't a Mars and Cap that can just, like, buck down, do it, nose to the grindstone, do the thing, get it done. Like, this is a Mars that wants to go everywhere. And I knew going into this episode, like, reflecting back on that, I was struck with how determined a Mars and Capricorn gets.
oh, down.
Like,
down.
the focus, the determination, the intensity of will
And both for a positive benefic cause, if it's, if that's its nature of existence, but also for malefic things. Like,
for sure.
If
like beheading.
like if it wants to take you out, like it will find the way to do it. Like when you look at Mars and Cap natives, like they are determined for their point or like their perspective on it to at least be brought to the table as a conversation. Like when you look at Mars and Sag, it's very mutable. So it's very much like using what's already been written, using something that provides all the resource that it needs to push it. Whereas Mars and Cap doesn't mind being like the raw, like jagged structure of what it believes in and selling it to you down. Like it will live its entire life like polishing that fine like black onyx stone until it becomes the sharpest knife in the world. Like really look at it through those levels, because then it goes into Aquarius, squaring its own home sign. So like there you also have like an entire conversation about like Mars in Capricorn into Mars in Aquarius. Like how does that
and the different aspects, because that makes the aspect on the other side, but then the Mars and Cap makes the aspect to Aries. And so it's like really interesting how the Saturn ruled signs aspect so many
of the Martian spheres.
Absolutely.
Because if you really looked at Mars fixed nature in Scorpio, it still has a way to move. It still has like a certain flow, an unseen one, you could say, a one directional one almost, just because of the nature of the Scorpion. But in Aquarius, like it's a mind one. It's a structure that cannot be moved. It's it can't be carved to the Martian, like the Martian movement. Because I think Mars and Cap loves kind of like this is the first structure, but like the structure and the final model never look the same.
No,
you get what I'm saying? It's like that was version 1. Yeah, that was version 1. Wait till I hit version 500 of the same idea. You don't have that luxury in Aquarius.
No,
you get what I'm saying? In Aquarius, it's like you're binding yourself to the structure and you have to put your will to that. There's no other choice.
Yeah.
So there's actions that can be taken to
get to
attest that will, affirm that will, kind of like bind yourself to that will. That's sextile to Aries, but it's not a movable place anymore.
No.
Which Mars struggles with. In air signs, if you look at it.
100%.
Throw back to that Mars retrograde in Gemini. Ugh!
She took us
that was my 12th house. That was my 12th.
And that was my 7th house, girly. It was...
It was that. It was Rocky down. It was the reason she now understands the Hellenistic term open enemy, okay? Because you had to deal with that for a good minute.
Yeah, no, the Mars in Gemini retrograde was really rough. And like Mars, Gemini, Aquarius, and then just like also Libra, obviously like classically debilitated. But Mars and air signs can really struggle to get, any sort of momentum moving because it's just buzzing everywhere. Whereas Mars in earth signs, even like the debilitated earth sign, because I can speak for myself for that, is like there's still something there to grasp. There's still something to work with that feels like really helpful, as opposed to just, I don't know what the fuck is going on or where I am or what's happening or what's going on.
I mean, if you look at like Saturn and Mars in Taurus specifically, there's always something to break through.
Yeah.
There's always like a certain kind of fixity in like environment, almost even that like Mars in Capricorn is like able to take the action to break through it, whereas Mars in Taurus like literally is trying to do that with a flowering garden, kind of tools instead of like literal axe and like mining tools. Whereas Saturn in slow as Taurus takes its time because it's comfortable in the environment that it's in. So it's like with earth signs, you kind of have that like looking for and at resource in order to build and make something. Mars in Taurus has the ability to do that with its own comfort. That's what I would say about the Mars and Taurus girlies. They only wait until they're uncomfortable to take that action. Mars in Capricorn doesn't live comfortable. And that's T. That's Mars and Earth signs. That's what we're getting into.
That is such a Taurus Scorpio thing, is like the concept of comfort as well. And I've thought about that a lot with like the specific sextile between like Scorpio, Capricorn, and then like the trine with Taurus, and how like Capricorn then like essentially can like look at that issue and be like, okay, what do we do about it?
What do we do about it?
What do we do about it? What do we do
That's
about
why
it?
it's so interesting. Like, I love Taurus placements because my literal Mars in Cap like always looks at a Taurus placement, and there's always this kind of like active, reactive, passive moment where it's like, are we gonna do it? We should do it. Oh my god! Like, there's really that interesting thing because I always bump into Saturn. Like I always bump into like the issue with the thing and like the limitation that one has to find a clever way to kind of like work around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why Mars in Scorpio and Mars in Capricorn like lives such an interesting kind of life, you know? Because there's a certain passion that you find in Scorpio that creates weird shit. Like Mars as a creative is also some place or like a sphere that I don't think is ever really like popped. But like we were talking about Scorpio natives and Mars and Capricorn natives, and like Gaga. Like look at the creations. They're not necessarily beautiful.
No,
they're provocative, you know. They make you think of beauty in a different way. Like you cannot tell me that VMA performance where she just had the paparazzi and she just gave us a blood gag. You know, very Rocky Horror, very Scorpionic. Like it takes you. Mars is able to take you there with red and just like switch up. That wasn't beautiful. That wasn't like Britney Spears with the snake giving body. Passionate. It was it was like I am art, you know, like I am gonna give you the gag, both with the song, with the dancers, with the set. Like she just got finished playing with piano with her feet. Like look at how much she disturbed the feminine like sphere and like look of fashion. And she was like, no, I'm gonna fuck it up. I'm gonna raw it up as a performance.
That is such a malefic like double experience, because it's like you might hate it, but you're not going to be able to look away. You might be absolutely disgusted, but you're going to be enraptured. And it's this like ability, because Mars has this extremely potent ick factor that I feel like more than any planet knows. Like Mars will, like when you get that like whole body ick, like that is such a Mars sensation. And to have it in Saturn's realm, to be like, oh, this ick is gonna ick at you. It's gonna itch.
And it's gonna stay. It's literally like a long lasting, but how, like why? But like it really triggers like the benefic spheres in the sense that it like pushes conformity out.
Absolutely.
And it automatically, like when you look at, for example, her Venus, like third decan of Aries, like if you look at the third decan of Aries, like if you look at the way the Martian kind of like decans and Saturnian decans go, it's very interesting because the third decan of Aries in some systems, it's bombastically over, like charismatically. Very like it's literally over the top on purpose. And in order for some people to conquer places, peoples, and things, like
they have to be more
like who's going to dare to go up against the girl that just hung herself from like a string while bleeding, girl? Like they're like, leave her there. She's in her own realm. Like
interestingly, whenever I put together a playlist of like artists, femme artists by Venus sign, and I like organized it by Venus, and she was like God tier Venus and Aries example. And I kept thinking about that square back to the Mars and Cap and how it like feeds it.
She agitates. She literally agitates her own like experience by what she's doing. Because remember when she started, you had this entire world like, is she a man, is she a woman, like what is this thing that just like has taken this, you know, like Mars in Capricorn loves doing that. And the first decade, when you go back to that first decade, bitch, because I live for a good decade talk. When you go back to the first decade, it's literally called like the headless body. Like you literally have like matter wanting to come into being and not having a specific form to actually fit into. So it's like these person and these people like are able to box themselves in different like silhouettes almost until they find one that they want to stitch together and like fortify, which is personally what I love about a good Martian story, because it's always shows either the fall, the great fall of exalted Mars people, or the great rise.
And that it always has the drama. It always has something that
it's a gag. It's a gag.
It's a gag. It's a gasp. It's something
depending on their Saturn sign.
Absolutely.
Because then you look at someone who's born with like Mars in Capricorn with like Saturn in Aries. You have mutual reception, but you have mutual reception in one of the toughest kind of like, you know, grind this, you know, planetary combination. So I definitely think if you have an exalted placement, it's really good to go back to the house ruler.
Who's in charge?
The house ruler who's giving you that resource, you know?
The rulers are so pivotal. I feel like especially for this Mars, because it's so like, even more so I feel maybe a little bit, this will obviously be for the next episode on like Mars and Aquarius, but there's this sense of like responsibility with Mars and Capricorn. It's like, okay, I have all of this power. Now what do I do with it?
You have to put it somewhere.
What do I, yeah, like I can't just sit on it. I'm not physically able or does even want to just sit on my laurels. Like I have to now do something with it. I have to take it, I have to transform it, I have to actually make it happen. I can't just think about it. I can't just marinate on it. It's going to be a thing. And it's becomes this like rise or fall, as you said, depending on how
to
it's
your own
handled.
demise, because it's like, imagine not thinking you're like a top grade A like NFL football player and not being able to get out of bed to go even to the field to condition. Like there's experiences of people who have that like placement of great will and ability to conquer through it, but like actually having a Saturn or like a disposition to take that action is sometimes very difficult, like for people, and depending on like all the different aspects that your chart kind of has to deal with. So
because you could be extremely hindered, and then that's when like, because that's even sort of like the difficulty with that cardinal experience is like when you're not able to do the thing, then
you're still expected.
Yeah,
like you're literally expected,
like the energy then gets really pent up, and that can like,
because you have to take action, and you're taking action without necessarily like trusting where it's going. And there you have like
Saturn's so big on trust.
Look at how like difficult it is for the moon to experience Mars.
Yeah.
Like she's so movable. She's definitely like not how she felt 5 minutes ago, and that is difficult for Mars because we can't tell me to cut the cloth right here and then change it to over here in 2 minutes. Yeah. It's beautiful, but the fabric is now ruined. The structure, like the bigger kind of like
go back from this.
Exactly, because Mars severs things. Mars doesn't necessarily create like a malleable, changeable, like, oh no, you can put it back. Like it's not clay. You're dealing with something after the killing type of shit, you know?
This is actually something I think a lot about with the Mars in the Earth signs, like archetypally, because like Mars in Capricorn is not like how you said it's not like a clay. It's more almost like the brick, like block foundations, because there are some things in life that, you know, unfortunately can't be fixed. Like some things they just have to start again from scratch. And I feel like that's the real beauty of so many like Mars and Capricorn individuals, that it's like, all right, no matter how many times you break it down, I'm going to be willing to build it back again.
Literally.
I'm going to be willing to grow again, build it back again. I'm going to be willing to start from scratch because, okay, cool, you knocked down that foundation. I'll build one that's better and stronger and more beautiful than the last one. And if you want to knock that down too, cool, I'm going to keep going, because you're not going to be able to stop me from continuing to go.
Which creates a huge lack and pivot between the mind and the emotion. Like I think which is also a huge kind of like entire different sphere with Mars, just because I personally have like my moon opposed Mars.
Same, that's a big thing. Whenever Edwin and I had our like NORWAC moment and we like looked at each other's charts, we were like, oh,
we get it.
Yeah, the girlies who get it, because you have this like super dignified Mars and moon opposition, and then I have like the complete opposite debilitated Mars moon opposition, and like in the water and the earth signs, and we just like had this moment where we were like, okay,
and there's a lot of people that have like that placement, which is very interesting. I've spoken like in the last couple of months to a lot of people, and it's this weird discomfort with being like in your vessel, in your body, kind of just like relaxing. There really isn't the ability to do that. I think like Mars literally agitates the environment that's supposed to feel kind of like the calmest, and entering a lunar ruled year. Oh mama, I'm there. I am experiencing, and Mars is opposing my moon to the degree right now. Like literally to the degree as we speak about it. And it's this like knowing and learning about everything that you have started, cardinal, that is opposing your rest at this current moment.
That is like doesn't want you to
all the responsibilities, all the Saturnian things, ruler in the 11th, all the community things, all the like tending to the garden that is the earth placement realm, and not allowing that to like help the moon just lay and sit. Mind you, because this new moon is literally a moon so 180 degrees away from my natal. So literally being put in that margin kind of sphere when you're not in a life period to sustain it.
The life force is not giving vital.
Yeah, like, and the moon is such a body kind of gig when we really look at it as like an indicator that I've been feeling kind of like the whiplashes of those responsibilities to the body.
Oh.
And literally just to the sphere and to the home, like you really get into that gig, that opposition. It's very, very interesting because mine are both, one is in domicile, one is exalted.
Yeah.
So both have the ability to kind of like want to put in the agenda, but I definitely have noticed that Miss take over.
Yeah, it says I would like to insert my will. I would like to place my authority and my dominance right here, right now.
Like, I'm gonna ask you something and you have to tell the audience the truth. How many times have you fallen asleep with your work items on your bed with you?
Ooh. I used to be really bad about it. I placed a boundary though.
Oh, you see, I don't have that. I don't have boundaries. That is literally the most Mars opposite moon thing. Like all the things for work, like all your astrology books with your laptop, and you just passing out on the bed. Like
that used to be me, especially because it's my 6 and 12 axis. That was me in college, actually. I used to fall asleep with stuff on my bed in college, high school, middle school. My whole life, I would fall asleep with books, papers, everywhere. But I set a really good boundary, actually, whenever I graduated college. I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I need my bed, my rest to be a sanctuary.
And it's such a different experience, right?
In my little 12th house life, I was like, I need to disappear. And as y'all have probably heard me say, I need to cocoon. For a little minute, I need to go cocoon, and you'll get there maybe.
I'm nowhere near my Saturn return, so I don't want to talk about it.
I can't relate.
That's me and boundaries. That's a whole Saturn and Taurus gig.
True.
That's a whole Saturn and Taurus gig. So like, I don't think you guys understand.
This is interesting. So we're gonna have to get, obviously we'll keep in touch and talk about it, how different the relationship with Mars is before versus after the Saturn return.
And in my secondary progressions, Mars is currently at its degree of exaltation. So like it all shifts interestingly. Like Sun moves into Sag in progressed chart next year. Mars moves into Aquarius. So like I've lived a Martian experience this
whole time.
But like I don't know anything else, you know. And another like trigger warning, eating disorders. Mars is such like an inhibitor, like for me, of food.
Oh, and Saturn,
of food. Wow. Like so like it's been very interesting, like taking down like topics like year 2, like the whole remediation thing, like going to a place of studying that allows me to understand those things, because it's very like embodied in reality and not necessarily like my relationship only to intimate people, but like literally like my intimate shit almost like that whole 7th house axis of like things opposite to me. Very active. So like the Martian experience isn't just, you know, glamour, glitz, and like sickling sharp eyeliner, but it also is one of endurance. Like one of pure and sickening endurance towards like that specific goal or thing that you want. I definitely think so.
That's Mars has lots of icky stuff.
Yeah. So definitely like living that like angular opposition this year has been like a because you're a very
active person. Like you do a lot. You are
so like it's weird because I literally forget to eat because of work. It's not even like an actual like me halting myself or like me having any personal issues. It's literally like my body will be like, well, I'm not hungry. Keep going on that 9 editing binger. Like keep doing that like look that's like 6-7 hours. Like keep like the body will like the Martian body will wear itself out because of what it's trying to achieve. Like it's
your malefics are like just keep going.
The malefics literally are just like just keep creating. Like what is the body? Like what is the vessel? Like what is comfort? No, like do that. Look,
this actually brings up something that I've been talking to a couple clients about recently. When a planet is so dignified, they almost go into autopilot. And they're like, yeah, things are great, things are good, we're just going, no matter what it is, and they just keep going. And it's almost a thing that you literally forget to consciously think about because it's just already established in there and such a foundational level of support that it almost doesn't require as much upkeep to just keep it going. Because
even if it's in a malefic nature.
Yeah.
So then when you look at remediatorial processes, that's why it's a very dangerous kind of sphere right now, like taking Copic's class, sometimes you're not meant to feed that planet because you will be overstimulating that sphere and causing some, like, literally
it's already
feeding
doing enough.
fire.
It's already doing
so it's
enough.
literally like a lot of people were just like, well, just light a candle for Mars. I'm like, you might need to starve Mars, actually. You might need to go on a fast of Martian things on like that Tuesday, or like literally a full fast to cleanse that sphere before you're able to really like
engage
assess with it and give it like the right thing. So it's been very, very interesting to like see that opposition come to life and how you can like literally work to remediate something so like angular. Is what I would say, because I think angular experiences definitely, like, once they become activated by like perfections, oh, they get like really in your face one-on-one. And I think as an astrologer, remediating that within your own chart allows you to facilitate that space for like other people that might be entering that, you know. So it's been fucking crazy, girl. Like, it's been fucking crazy. Like, an exalted fucking Mars is really pushing through. And my solar return, remember that gnarly eclipse in like in Taurus, witnessing all of that Mars. Like, Jupiter has been trining that Mars all year. Now the return of that Mars is happening. Like,
Mars and Taurus has been, or Jupiter and Taurus.
Jupiter and Taurus has just been like literally shining a ray on everything that's been wrong with that Mars. Because when you look at Jupiter-Mars combinations, go right back to my fucking natal chart, girl. Jupiter answers to Mars, and Mars literally is witnessing Jupiter because it's house ruler. So it's like, you really look at my base of faith and religious practices as one of the biggest outlets for remediating that, like so much energy that it would be kind of self-destructive if I contained it all in. So it's like, literally, spend 6 months trying to figure out like a ritual to the fucking gods, like that, like all of that weird different shit, like all of that 10th house shit, really just perform.
Just
go perform, like go do something,
go
girl. Like, go do it, because if not, it just gets pent up. Down. The space from a Martian baddie.
That gets so, because like the malefic nature of that gets so intense over time that like whenever it like gets pent up in that way and like doesn't have an outlet,
it's terrible. It's literally terrible, because it gives senseless arguments in wars. You get what I'm saying? Because like the malefic nature is to want to defend against something. It wants to compete against something. So it's like a lot of
I'll create an enemy.
Souring of intimate relationships, literally for reasons unbeknownst to me. Oh, the favorite thing of the universe to do to me. Like, we go back, and my like horoscope chart has been gaga. Every time that I was talking to her about before in the pod before we started, every time she has like a career pivotal moment, she'll have like something tragic happen in her love life. And literally the life of angular placements, like, it's literally either you get a really good 7th house situation or you get a really good 5th house situation. You can't get both. You can't get both. You get what I'm saying? Like, either you're creating the thing that's like really dope and artistic, or you're investing into that really intimate relationship, but you can't get both.
It's interesting. I often like to, because one of the things people talk about one of the things people often talk about is like, okay, what house is sex in or whatever, and I always like to think like, okay, like it might be in a couple different places, but like the 5th house would be like sex for fun, for joy, for pleasure,
and you get that, you see where we're going to that,
and then the 7th house is like, okay, that's sex for intimacy,
bitch, let me
for
take
togetherness.
Real quick, because I'm about to explain to you. I'm about to take you to the.
It's the togetherness, and it's like it's the joining of two people versus like we're just here for a good time, not for a long time. You know, like the difference between like being ready to commit versus just trying to fall out.
So the first decan of Scorpio, the first decante of Scorpio, the first piece of Scorpio Copic calls.
The lore, the Bible.
The nymph. So we usually get images of a hungry woman who's like in red and who's like eating red meat, and it's like an image where you find like the ecstasy and hungry woman. Now when you look at what you're saying, and oh my god,
red.
You're done.
Literally
you're
red.
done.
Literally red. She said
when you look
red.
at that 5th house, like literally a lot of my life and a lot of the delineations that astrologers have given me is that I have to work my sexual energy into creation and artistic creation, because if not, like, because of the way that I look, because of the way that I am, I have facilitated and aided many people into exploring for the first time, like that whole kind of like DL fantasy, which I think all queer culture knows about, which
For
I think
sure.
is a very Martian thing.
Absolutely.
A very Martian thing. And that first decan of Scorpio and that fifth house of like what you're saying, like hookup culture, or just like, oh, turning the trade out, or just like literally being out and like somebody wanting that quick moment with you and having something intimate. Which is that seventh house. Like,
and being able to just create that moment.
Yeah, and then struggling because then you're trying to go from that like fifth house to seventh house, and it's like intimacy leads to you trusting someone enough to hate them and love them, you know? So it's like literally either you're living that fifth house fantasy where you're like in the nymph kind of world,
literally in the fantasy.
Fifth house, like joy of Venus, you're not there for a quick time. Like you're there for a quick time, sorry. You're not there for a long time. That would be Jupiterian. You know, like we would be looking at like expanding
the 11th house.
Fantasies of forever. Like Venus and Pisces, okay, we could see it a little bit. We could see it a little bit because it's a Jupiterian sign.
Because of the Jupiter.
But then when you look at Venus in the first decan of Sag, it's all about quick, like you can only do quick love magic, you know, like Venus isn't necessarily worried about the marriage. She's worried about getting you two to love each other enough to get to that moment in that sequence.
She's worried about you orgasming.
Like the Jupiterian arc would be the marriage and using religion to promise, you know, vows of faith. That we can get into.
That's the relationship.
Venus is worried about the party at the motherfucking marriage, you know, like she's worried about the reception after the Saturnian binding, you know?
And so like the dichotomy and like contrast between that fifth, seventh house relationship and everything that goes in that, and then like Mars being like
choose either you're a whore and not in a bad way because I definitely
let's plug the ethical slut book forever and always, period.
That is a Martian experience, like literally being willing to just do your thing. That's a Martian thing. I live and support people who are sex workers, like absolutely. I definitely think that fifth house is about that. And when you get to the seventh house, it's almost like the makeout session after you had sex where you're telling each other the intimate things and the person didn't leave. You know, it wasn't like the grinder hookup that gets up after you're done and just like dips out. It's the person who stays with you, you know.
They stay the night.
Exactly. Like that's very seventh house. Like I can fall asleep and you can steal my things. That's seventh house.
That's so seventh house.
That's so seventh house.
Like you could very easily, and that is such a real thing with like Mars and vulnerability in general, is like you are trusting someone to essentially wield a knife against you, and you are like
giving them. Ascendant is the body, like
you are giving them the power.
Even having, you know, the intimacy of engaging to that level of being inside the home, inside the body, like engaging in that sexual thing. When you look at it from a fifth house perspective, it's for fun. So it might not be as like strict or as like really, you know, binded. But when you're looking at a seventh house kind of moment, it's almost like, oh, do you want to use protection? That's a very distinctive fifth house, seventh house.
How are we protected?
You get what I'm saying? Like that is definitely like, oh, but if you.
This is so interesting for me to think about, because even though our rising signs are technically averse, we both have the Mars ruled fifth house.
Yes, ma'am.
And so thinking about the like relationships between
intimacy and the levels of intimacy that come. Like, I don't think you understand, like, the Mars in Capricorn has all of that underlying, especially me, since it has to do with intimate relationships. With every single person that it meets. Like, every single person that I meet is kind of like those skills of, like, how much can I show of me? Like, are you a straight man? Do I need to act, like, a little bit bland so I can, like, blend in and just have, like, a respectful relationship with you? Are you a doll and we can get into, like, a whole, like, fully being ourselves, mask off kind of moment? Are you like a cisgendered, you know, woman who has never seen someone like me and you're being awkward and I need to get something from you, so I'm gonna like literally incognito what I am just to get through the situation. Today, like that is literally Mars assessing every single intimate kind of like moment that it has, because it has to.
For defense.
Because there's a whole difference between like meeting like the old guy who's been dying to see someone like me so they can punch him in the face because of what they've been watching, you know, elsewhere. Like that
because
is also
of what they were taught.
That is literally Mars in the summit. Like you literally have people. I have people who wake up every single day in the other side of the country, world, anywhere right now, and don't wish for my existence. That is a Mars. That's the Martian experience. Really? Like literally, I could be stranded in their town and they would not hesitate to run me over. Not even like being exaggerative or anything. Not like that's just literally the Martian experience. in Florida dressed like this right now.
Yeah, because
it's a Martian experience.
Yeah, because like you, even though like Edwin and I both live in like, you know, rather progressive liberal areas,
right.
For Florida in general is a rough place to live right now.
So you drive out 3 hours and you have to get gas, and if you got a full face like me right now, you not only have to think about getting gas but also defending yourself.
Yeah.
Like that is also part of the Martian like experience. Not because of anything other than existing and literally living your artistry. So it's been very interesting to live in this world currently and be like, no, I'm gonna pioneer this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care that I'm 16. I'm gonna do my full foundation, like full Patrick Star Manny MUA fantasy in high school.
Yes!
Literally showing up my senior year, like blue eyebrows, blue eyeshadow, blue hair, blue outfit. Like, she was very much like gaga in your face about it because I wanted my experience to be authentic, if anything. I'm like, if you're gonna take me out, you're gonna take me out in the most sickening mug. Like, I'm not going to live, you know, like...
I'm not gonna go ugly.
I'm not gonna go ugly, and I'm not gonna go without living my most authentic expression of myself.
Absolutely.
I definitely think Mars will pay any price to do that, even if it means, like, having to wake up every single morning and be like, no, I don't want to be a girl. That would be someone who would be trans. No, I am this. I'm not this.
I know who I am.
Like, literally having to teach people to respect and create those kind of, like, structures of boundaries, even if they don't have them, is my purpose, you know, like, so that, you know, queer boy who wears eyeshadow is not looked at, hopefully, as much as I was. You get what I'm saying? Like, preparing and thinking about how this affects everything and everyone before you and after you. That's literally the entire experience of like the Saturnian Martian kind of
I was about
thing.
to say, it's giving Saturn, and it's so crazy earlier that you were like, I'm still a couple years from my Saturn return, we're not going to talk about it, but you're living the truth.
Literally living, like, having to appease the Saturnian things, like, having to appease, like, the Saturnian bounds. Like, a very, very heavy part of that is wearing makeup as a man. Like, think of Saturn in Taurus. Like, literally,
absolutely.
Oh, you're not supposed to. Like, literally, the you're not supposed to makeup is for women part has been a part of my entire existence. And you're like, who created that rule, girl? Like,
what's the rule for?
Who created that Saturnian rule in your book? You get what I'm saying? So literally having...
I feel that is actually a super, like, archetypally Capricorn experience as, like, just an archetype of a sign is like, okay, that's your rule, but why though? Like, why is that rule a thing? Because I know, like, my Capricorn planet deals with that a lot, and it's like, why is this a thing? Who created this thing? Why are we honoring this structure if it actually doesn't have a strong foundation, if it's actually not worthy of our respect for any other reason than they wanted to superimpose their will? Like, it wasn't a rule to help people, it was a rule to create power for one or another. It wasn't made with everyone in mind. Like, why is this rule a thing?
It isn't. It's a part of your ideal structure that you would like to impose on people. And that's been the issue, that in the 11th, I've just, like, became the weird witch in, like, the outhouse, like, in the corner of the woods. And it's been such also a Saturnian experience, because either Saturn gives you two options. Either you form yourself into what that, like, mold or structure of where you're from or where you came from or where that Saturnian kind of limit comes into, or you can do the opposite Saturnian thing and lean into all the, like, non-conventional different things that exist into it. You get what I'm saying? So, like, you then flip the Saturnian situation.
You said actually.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, Saturn, I'll take the box of being queer, witches, weird charms, and warlock. Okay, give me the whole box of things that this society doesn't want. I'll be over in the corner. But it's taken, like, years. I had to go through, like, my Saturn square when Saturn was in Aquarius.
Yeah.
Talk about losing an entire friend group.
Yeah.
Talk about losing the entire structure
the closing Saturn square.
And literally being like, okay, I have nothing except old text, Egyptian old religious text, like literally dead spirits and isolation.
I got nothing.
It was literally like, go over there and learn all of that so you can, like, get ready for this new 11th house situation that you might be having.
That's going to come.
Like, literally Saturn and Pisces.
Yeah.
Now I have Saturn training both my moon and sun at the same time. But that Saturn-Mars relationship, get into it, y'all. It's literally such a key, but even not just for my nativity, just nativities in general. And like, in natal,
the malefic experience.
So fucking gaggy. So, because right now, even in the sky, if you look at it, just Mars is the only person getting a good ray from Saturn.
Right now, yeah.
Like,
Mars said, "Hey baby,
like
what's up?"
Jupiter is like, I left the party, go, I cannot witness Saturn for any longer. You get that whole sign sextile for a little bit. Wait till I get to Gemini, and literally Mars in Capricorn is the only thing that currently applied and made that sextile, and literally look at what we're talking about.
Yeah,
the
because it's
relationships
so close right now.
The working relationships between Mars and Saturn. Like, literally, they're so close.
To give y'all like the degree situation right now, because like as of right now, we're recording this literally Wednesday, January 10th. So like
they're
Mars,
to the degree. They're only what?
To the degree. Like Mars,
30 seconds of arc away?
Yeah, like Mars is at 4 degrees of Capricorn and Saturn is at 4 degrees of Pisces. And Jupiter's still pretty close at 5 degrees. But it's like,
this is such a
crazy.
Mars Saturn episode.
It's crazy.
That is very interesting.
So like even whenever, because this is how it often goes. I feel like a lot of times, like I love electing, I love electoral astrology, but a lot of times there will be this thing where it's like the election chooses you.
The
like
spheres
time chooses you. And whenever this ended up being essentially like the day that we were planning to record this, I like looked at the chart, of course, and was holy shit, okay, this is the Mars Saturn episode with the Mars Saturn happening. Because it's so wild to see how the malefics interact in this way. And I think I love this placement so much because like I have like the opposite, like I have like the Saturn in the place of Mars fallen, not the happy relationship of it, with like also the Earth Taurus. And so like people that have Mars and Capricorn have always been some that I've always been drawn to so much. Like I love
they people. Empower you type shit.
Yeah.
Like it's really like almost an empowering, because I know you have a really sickening relationship with Blaze too. And she's a Mars and Cap doll. Like she's a Mars and Cap native who also has the moon in Cancer. Like we know this experience, and it's this weird, like for you having it flipped.
Yeah.
You literally have to go and give in order to get back. Like with you, it's literally like the giving in fixed states.
Giving.
Yeah.
It's a like constant give.
And the fixed nature is just such a different current to run that in. Because at least for me, I have to actively find ways within myself to take action to do the thing. For you, it's breaking out of like certain stagnations.
Yep, absolutely.
When it comes to those relational topics that pop up. Mm-hmm. So like literally you'll be like, oh, I'm able to absorb it. 10 years later, you're like, okay, I'm done.
Yep. Yeah, the Mars Saturn experience for me is like being able to take it and take it and take it and take it.
Like the compressurizing of situationships until you're like, no, this all stems back to that one time you did it in 2008. Like you've done it 16 times since then.
Right. It's like,
and I'm at a point now, and you're like, oh,
now I'm done.
That was all the underneath motivation between that side eye that you gave that girl. Like it's really that layered when it comes to that, because Mars and Taurus is so, I would say, aesthetic about the way that it takes its like jabs at things and people. It's not necessarily like Mars and Cap, like messy karakakaka. It's more of like this like cute took you out of my like sphere. And then made a cute little story about how it happened to the people around me.
I'm dead.
Like, it's very much I hid the body, threw it out, and nobody saw what happened.
Whereas, like, the Mars and Capricorn, it's like here's the body.
Here's the body. Here's the gun that was used. This is the actual map that I used to do it. And
drew it out for myself, for you.
Here's the pictures of me following you here every single day, too, by the way. Like, it's very that. Whereas Mars and Taurus, I just think it's more of a, like, convenience situation. So find the most convenient way to get the person or situation out of its life and then deal with the rest of it.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because Mars and Libra does the same thing.
Yeah, the Venus ruled.
Until it opens its mouth and you're like, oh, that's how she fell.
That's how she really fell.
That's how she fell.
She said it with her chest.
Wow. And so that's been my experience.
And that's another interesting thing about like the Mars and Cap relationship with both of those, like the aspect, to both of those, the square and then the trine to both of the Venus ruled Mars places, is like the, I guess, contrast with how obvious it is what you're feeling, because a Mars and Cap has this forwardness constantly of knowing exactly how things are always, whereas the, like, by contrast, like a Venus ruled Mars is like, I don't want to go there because it's messy. It's
like literally like I don't want to ruin the vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, bitch, well, you don't even like the vibe, so why do you give a fuck about it? You know, it's erupted, girl. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, I don't want to ruin the vibe. You are not in the vibe right now, so like, what? Like, it's very much that. Like, take the action for what you want to feel.
For sure.
Almost.
And it's also the concept of like that word you even used was ruin, like the concept of ruin, where like a Mars in fucking Capricorn ruled by Saturn said, okay, ruin, that's fine, whatever.
I don't
We can
mind
deal with
that.
that. We can deal with
the rubble. We can make
work with
something
that.
out of the rubble.
We can work with that. Like, whereas someone else who doesn't have, I would say, the fortitude to handle that is going to look at that and feel instantaneously defeated.
Yeah, like literally,
any
I don't want to
other-
ruin the aesthetic because I'm not able to either compensate and give something better
Yeah.
or fix it if it becomes disrupted.
Even like, I think about like basically any other Mars placement besides Capricorn would have like an immediate sort of probably this disgruntled frustration with being given this fucking rubble. Whereas like a Mars and Cap can only think, I can do this with that, I can do this with that, no matter what state or condition they arrive in or they are thrusted upon, they're able to immediately go into the mode of problem solving, fixing, creating, seeing what can be transmuted and utilized to the best thing.
My favorite would be the only other one that I've experienced and read on, like Mars and Pisces. Third decan, because it has rulership over that third decan.
Yeah.
So it's literally like, I will sacrifice my existence for this.
For anything.
You got what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
maybe I will, but like, no, you're not worth that much. But like, I live for that sextile because it's like Mars in Pisces really is about giving its entire being for what it truly believes. And I definitely think that has a lot to do with Mars and Cap. It's just not as like, oh, I can't make it happen.
It's not as immediate.
Yeah, it's not like, no, bitch, you can make it happen. So like when I meet Mars and Pisces people, I'm like, there's this beautiful will that you carry about yourself. Now bring it down to like physical manifestation, you know, like physical terrain.
Function.
Yeah, like literally the physical terrain. It's the only placement and thing that I've read about that I just love the stories that you're able to find in that third decan of Pisces. It's very like, in order to build it, I'll give my body. Bitch, you should have just used your 2 hands to build it instead of, you know, giving the gods the most ultimate offering, which is your body, girl. Like, be for real.
That is another thing I will say about Mars and Capricorn is the practicality of it. It's like, okay, get to the point.
It's take care of it.
Take care of it. What's the most like literal interpretation of it
at this moment?
Yeah, it's very like present in that way that I feel like people often forget is a big earth thing because they maybe, you know, put that with air or fire or something, but the presence that the earth
has to,
that it requires, that it holds, that you immediately bring to it and that you are present within it, that I feel
because you only start watering a plant once you start seeing like an actual presence of the plant. Like if the soil doesn't have anything protrude out of it, you're like, oh girl, it flopped. You there's no reason for me to keep watering it.
It flopped.
It flopped. Like, but if you see like the tiny little leaf pop out, oh mama, she's getting all the attention.
Hope.
She's getting all the attention because there's enough there. You know, there's some kind of sustainability between the seed that you planted and what you watered it in that tiny amount of time that gives you hope. And I think with Mars and Cap, they always find that kind of like in between. Oh, this is such a long ass streak, but I'm gonna believe in it.
Yeah.
And it's enough to truly get them there. But it fucks them up. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you. But it's like you do all that, you get to the top, and then you're like, was this throne worth conquering?
Was it right?
Like, was it? I had the agility, I had the stamina, I had the ability to do it. Was this Saturnian journey worth it?
That's super deep, because then you get into all those feelings of like, I put in so much time and energy into this thing. Yeah, like I'm trying to build this, and now what have I built?
Is this what I want to build? Is this what I want? Was this even for me? Like that's how Saturn gets you, because Saturn puts you like underneath something or someone. So it's like really looking at the underlying structure that Mars is really taking action for and with. Any Martian person can get caught up in. Any, because it's like, imagine being in the military. Perfect example, a soldier.
Super.
101.
Yeah, Mars, 101. The classic Mars example of the soldier.
Like you get, you know, you do your training, you become the most sickening doll there, you become, you know, like top clearance. Like she's that girl, she get called on when, you know, they need a quick one too.
Yeah, good like comparison with this reference has been used all over, but you have like the Mars in Aries, which is like the person on the front lines. That's the soldier that's front line, running in, charging into battle.
You have the Mars taking care of anything.
Yeah, you have the Mars in Scorpio, the sniper holding up above, like
agility, skill. A specific fixed skill. Absolutely. And then you have Mars in Capricorn,
which is running it, literally, like
running
lieutenant.
it, which means that they have no say or necessarily movement in what the above structure has told them to do. You get what I'm saying? Like, they're literally running based on the structure that's been handed and taught to them. Like, literally, Saturn is like, if they come in, they're gonna get, you know, a pink stripe right here and 5 arm tattoos. Yep. They don't necessarily even, you know, at a certain point, Mars and Cap get so into it that it's like, no, that's just a structure that was asked of me because of, boom, let's do it. You know, everybody's gonna get that. Everybody's gonna do that. And then it looks back and it's like, well, maybe that structure wasn't one that I might have, you know, done, but it's just what I ran on. It's just what I believed in. It's just what was instilled into me. Yeah. That's the Saturnian story that, like, depending on your Saturn
you
side
get you buy into that.
You get put into that specific one. So there you have to look at the worth.
That's the Saturnian, like, longevity of, like, when you get in it and you keep going in it and you do it.
You have to remember, you can't just get like, okay, the structure's this and it's just a revolving door, because structures change, structures wither, structures need reinforcing. Like, there you get into that Saturn Uranus square, not to bring out the outers, but like there's that interesting like dichotomy between like change and revolution and like how Saturn deals with that.
For sure.
I would definitely say. So I think that's been my experience with the Saturnian structures. Like, a lot of the time after doing it for like 2 or 3 years, like you're like, wait, why was I, what have I been?
What did I build that for?
Like, you know, like, oh, you got the entire kingdom, but I don't like where it's placed. That kind of shit, girl.
It's like it's like real life examples. Like, I moved to this place because I had this great idea and I built my whole life, but I don't like it anymore.
I don't like the water, and then you're living by the beach.
Yeah.
You know, you're like,
I don't like the cold, but you're in the mountains. Like,
thank you.
I don't like the city, but I'm in New York.
Because
like,
the structure asked that of you. Because the structure demanded that in order for you to get to the arc of completion in whatever Martian storyline you might have, you know, in your mind with it. And it's never perfect enough. It's never not able to get taken up another level. You know, like that's the issue with Mars and Capricorn. That cardinal energy knows no bounds. Yeah. So that second part is feats and like things that you aspire to do that will never come to fruition.
It's interesting that you say that, because like relationally, like Mars and Cap people, I love them, but I have had like romantic entanglements with some of them that was not cute.
No, because it's like that cardinal energy,
it was not cute for
goes
my
into overdrive,
you
know, and it's like, yeah, I'm starting this with you, but I'm also starting this. So it's like my love for you was something that I started. Yeah. And now I need to go start 500 other things. And you're like, but wait, what about the structure that you and I were
building? Yeah. I love them though. Some of my
that's what I'm
people.
saying. Experiential, like as an archetype, beautiful for a human to exist.
Yeah, sometimes I mean that's
that's
every planet and every placement.
Yeah, like
that's tea.
As a human, which is very interesting because then you get into like the talismanic kind of gigs of it, and it's like Martian talismans are to be very cautious with.
So careful.
Because it's like a Mars in the 28th degree exalted. It's like, what do you do when you have to carry a knife that can cut you just by looking at it?
Yep.
You get what I'm saying? Like, what do you do with such dignity? Like, we have been speaking this whole time.
And
like,
I really feel like that, it's so cheesy, but like the line, like, with great power comes great responsibility. I feel like this placement feels that more than any other, because it's the malefic exaltation.
It will test it. It will test it. It's like, okay, so let's cardinal. Let's bring a situation to see how well you can.
Yeah, like it. Literally every single type of stress test that can possibly happen, that you're constantly getting strengthened under, every single one you learn, you grow, you build, and then you're stronger, better, ready, faster for the next one. And it's like test after
overdrive.
Test after. Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're a Martian person, be wary using Martian talismans. That's see really how much Mars you're able to handle in your sphere. You know, is it activated? Do you have to work with it right now? Even, you know,
yeah, that's
because like personal. Like I was gagging when everyone was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna make a talisman for that Mars Kazemi." I'm like,
no, I would never. Me personally, with my Mars situation,
real, like,
I
on some real
can't
shit.
handle Mars and domicile anything. I can handle an exalted Mars things, but I can't do Mars. But that's because of my own sitch. Like, literally,
But that's real. And one thing that I've noticed people running into the issue with materia is that they might think their body's able to just handle every single materia. And not to bring Miss Caitlin Coppin into this, but of course,
our queen. I've had to regift so much of her materia because I was a little.
You're like, bitch. She was talking about it, and she's like,
once you know.
I'm a Venus and Virgo. I hate Venus and Taurus talismans because the currency is just so like.
It's different.
That it's just not a vibe.
Absolutely.
That's not to say that the Venus and Taurus talisman doesn't work.
They're doing exactly what they're supposed to, which is why it doesn't feel good.
This is why, like, so as a native, if you want to, like...
Me, with Mars and Scorpio materia, because I have Mars and Taurus,
that 180.
Never.
That 180.
Literally never. And I love because that's where my moon is, and so, like, I have a lot of oppositions in my chart anyway, and so, like, you have to know...
But fueling Mars to a place where your moon is at, that's fallen... Magically, you look at it and you're like, are you gonna be alone in a river? Like, are you gonna do that alone in a river during a balsamic moon to do a cleansing? Like,
right.
You have to like look at the situation and what the situation like opens up and allows you to kind of like use.
Exactly.
Because then if you overfuel it, girl, then you're just in the margins. And I'm saying that because I've done it. I'm saying that because I've done it to experiment and learn about it.
Yeah, the exalted Mars is like,
bitch, I wanna fuck around. Literally, I'm like, what is it that? Oh fuck, girl, snaps fucking finger. But I got a good that's how talismanic magic and I think Martian spheres work. Like they want to push that limit to see how far the structure can be.
And you're gonna feel it in your body. That's like the real thing with Mars, like magic in general. It's probably gonna hurt.
Fuck you up. It's gonna literally make you feel it.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. And that is one of the things that like working with Mars as a planet I found like more than any other. It's like if you're doing something that's not quite right, like it's going to hurt. Like it's literally physically like you're gonna start feeling it somewhere. It's gonna be like, okay, listen to the body signals when they say no. And be aware what's happening.
And that's what's interesting.
Your body will tell you.
Because Mars talisman blur that. They blur the levels of pain, and then like the hangover afterwards, you're like, why is my whole body like sore?
Yeah.
Like I just did 14 pirouettes, 3 spins, and I haven't drank water in 5 to 10 songs. Like why is my body, running on lactic acid, girl? And it's Mars.
Yeah.
Like Mars doesn't. That's actually the only way to feel like literally Mars, like the reality of it. That pain is a part of entering the Martian sphere. Like if you're not sweating or crying while doing it, is it Martian?
Truly. Me when I woke up this morning.
Both sex and gym,
literally me when I woke up this morning and I was like, I'm gonna need to do a full body stretch before this talk because I have been so sore the last few days. As always. Mars life.
For me, Mars just overworks me. Like for me, like a beautiful, beautiful way to connect with dead spirits, like live. But Mars overworks me to I don't know what a work-life balance is. Yeah. Like real tea, girl. Like real gag tea. Like downsides to the fucking Mars and it's like that difficulty for structure.
Mars says we're gonna go. We're gonna do it.
When are you stopping?
Why would you need to stop?
Just that, girl.
And that's a very malefic experience of like, why would I? Because you forget, like Mars ruled by Saturn. Like, why would we stop for Venus or Jupiter? They can catch up. Like, why would we stop?
You can find comfort in the discomfort. Is what a Venus and Virgo says.
Why would we stop?
Literally, Venus and Virgo is like, well, I guess this is it. Like, she doesn't care for finding lux. She doesn't care for. She's like, well, I'm gonna make a bed here in
this works.
Shards of glass. Shards of literal glass is sometimes what we get from Mars. And we just lay there. And if you lay on enough pieces of glass, you don't feel it. Like, that's really what Venus and Virgo... Like,
not me thinking of my girl, Maven Misbehavin', who literally has a whole ass burlesque performance where she has a whole glass walking,
that's
dancing
Venus and Virgo. That's literally
screaming.
Venus and Virgo. Like, one of the delineations in Venus and Virgo is, like, dancing and then missing a step.
Yep.
Like, you really get into that. And then if you look at that dispositorship from Mars, it's almost like being super glam. And if you were a woman, you would have been a sickening supermodel, but you were born a man. So now you have to struggle against society to show your beauty in beauty spheres. Mama, Venus and Virgo. I was like, oh, that's the tale you're playing on me, universe. Yeah. I was like,
The universe said that's
like I'll never forget.
That's the bottom line.
I'll never forget competition. Girl, everybody knows the doll was robbed. Everybody knows she was robbed.
At what?
By a corporate company.
Real-time tea.
To be a Capricorn. To be a fucking Capricorn placement at that moment. Like, I understood, like, the reason that Mars, like, trines between the malefics aren't necessarily positive is what I...
Absolutely.
Low-key figured, because it's almost like the accessibility...
Malefic aspects in general are like
the accessibility for struggle to become a part of the narrative has to start with situations like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in order for the doll to hit 27, 28 and have, like, that whole story arc, like, these moments have to happen right now.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult as an astrologer because you can do nothing except, like, literally prepare.
Mm-hmm.
Quite literally. So it's, like, the whole opposition between the moon and malefic, like, prepared for it, went through the gig. Like, the whole Saturn square, like, literally watching when those malefic combination comes in, I think is kind of, like, the morbid thing us astrologers do.
Oh, for sure.
So
I mean, tracking malefics is so much fun in general, and I mean, like
messy down.
I feel like every good astrologer has had an astrologer good moment where they're like, well, this is so bad. Let me make sure I really write down what's going on.
For real. What's been your favorite, like, Mars, like, era? Has it been Mars in Aries, Mars in Capra, like Mars in Scorpio?
Oh, well, I am. So, like, anybody, I'm sure everyone here, if you're a regular listener, has seen my chart, but, like, I have a planet in, like, Scorpio, Aries, and Capricorn, like, Mars, domicile, and exaltation places, and all of them are debilitated. And so I have had, I would say, like, Mars in those places doesn't really feel good ever because
it brings struggle.
Yeah, because all of my planets are debilitated there.
So that reminder of, like, a fallen planet always reminds you of why it's fallen.
Right, always. And so, well, 2 are fallen and 1's antithesis, but still. But actually, wait, no, all of those are in fall. Actually, just kidding. And
she said the moon fallen,
Jupiter fallen, Saturn fallen.
But I love Jupiter in Capricorn.
I love that for you. But I will say that is my favorite place for Mars. Out of the 3 of them, I would say that's by far my favorite, most comfortable, I would say, place for Mars to be transit-wise. Not people-wise. I love all of them people-wise, just because they obviously bring something out in me, like, relationally that I really enjoy. However, like, transit-wise, lived experience, Mars is in Cap has always been the most positive out of the 3. Do you feel the same way for, like, the return, or?
It always brings in messiness.
It's messy, yeah.
I think Mars in Scorpio allows me to get quiet. So I'm able to really go into, like, spirit land. Like, it's I live for the girls that have Mars in Scorpio because it's such a different placement from Mars in Cap.
Yeah.
Mars in Aries just makes me, like, want to post and create and do, like, all the 10th house shit.
Yeah, 10th house,
so I find myself doing a lot. Like, that Mars in Aries retrograde was
That was cute.
The second time around didn't feel as cunty when Jupiter was there with it. I'm not even gonna cap. Like, that Mars in Aries retrograde for some reason was, like, life-changing for me. I lived, like, I was just in my room, closed door, like, doing entire photo shoot sets in my fucking room, girl.
Get down.
Wild. Like, the bitch was wild. So it's like, I'm dying to try the Mars and Aries material from Stuart and Sundry, but
I can't touch.
I'll let you know.
I can't. Yeah, let me know. We might try a little dib or dab here, but I know that
she said, "Get it away."
I can't touch. But it is not. Well, that was my solar return that year. That had, like, I had the Mars Jupiter in the first in Aries for my solar return.
And it was a mess.
Yeah, that was, like, not a super cute time for me. Like, it was cute at points, but, like, broad scope, not
very
cute.
burst of flames energy.
Right. And so, and, like, of course, that's where my Saturn is. And I've had to do, like, I've been in this, like, me and Saturn have been putting in the time. Like, I've been I'm not even trying to make it a
She
gag.
said my Saturn return is basically in 2 weeks, and I'm really trying to make sure that when the tax collector with the scythe comes, I'm clear.
No, literally,
I feel you.
I've been getting ready for years, y'all.
Me thinking about my Saturn return when it's already just in, like, all the way in Pisces, and I'm like, oh
you're like, whatever.
No, I'm stressing, sis. Because I know that's gonna be like my bad bitch era. Like, that's when I'll get my rhinoplasty, that's when I'll get my hairline transplant. Like, it's really gonna give,
it's
you
gonna
know?
give.
I don't know, because it's just like Saturn really has given me a moment for my 20s. Like, I'm low-key not mad. Like, my 20s have been so Saturnian.
Truly.
Like, I haven't partied, I haven't, like, I have, but not in like the regular traditional.
Not in
like,
the
Like, I lived it. I became an influencer. Like, I did the whole beauty thing, and then like Saturn in Aquarius like grabbed me and was like, learn esoteric, learn your roots, snatch me into that. Like, literally, Saturn in Cap was the whole entire beauty artistic sphere.
Yeah.
Saturn in Aquarius was literally establishing the entire scope of learning the history of astrology. Like, literally 2 to 3 years now of just every single day of my fucking life doing astrology.
Yep.
Like, very fucking fucked. So it's like, now that I'm in like Saturn trining the sun and moon, I'm like, okay, this is everything that's wrong with me.
Aww,
very that no, like, remember, because my moon and sun apply to each other, so it's like Saturn literally halted everything when it entered that first decan. Like, if you guys don't know about the first decan of Pisces, it's about literally the labyrinth. It's about literally learning the structures of emotions for which you've created that run kind of the reality that you're in. So doing a lot of Pisces work has kind of like pinpointed that part of my life a whole lot. And having Saturn just force you to mature due to life is also a huge part of it.
Yeah, like, you're here existing.
But I kind of want to break it all apart, bitch, to be honest. Like, I want to do the Mars. Like, I want to do the Mars and Cap thing, where it's like, I love the structure that I've created.
Build a new one. Build a new one.
Literally, I'm like,
next one loading currently.
I'm literally like, okay, you live that.
Live the fantasy. Where's the
fantasy? Live the fantasy. Like, and Dima Mundi has just ruptured everything.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Like, it has just like waterfalled everything into like, you know, when you become a magician at first and you do like your first good spells that like create
the first good ones
that create the structure, but like now that you're in that structure, your magic's just like, did you think that all the Jupiter said, bitch, you thought these were the clauses in the petition that you didn't read, you know? So a huge part of doing talismanic magic has been learning to roll with that, because I wouldn't say they've been negative ones.
Oh, absolutely.
They've just been such interesting plot lines to
unfold
fucking the story. So that when you start really playing with fate and fortune, you have no one to fucking blame but
yourself. Yeah.
So you're like, oh, that working, it rippled. You know, oh, that working, it rippled. Oh, that working, it rippled. But would I change it? No, I think that's also Mars and Cap. She's like, bitch, I wanted to play this shit in cardinal mode. Like, let me become the architect of the story.
Cardinal mode is so real, though, because you're like, I'm not going to go back and try to, like, fix that. We're just going to keep moving forward.
What can we do now to, like, this was a part of the story. This is a part of what you wanted. Now that it's here, these are all the underlying things that go with it, don't go with it, work with your life, and don't work with your life. Like, how are you going to implement that into the structure that you already have? Like, mama, that's literally a Mars and Cap's head every single fucking day. Welcome to the Martian ball, bitch. But
it's so good.
Yeah. Are we gonna get into the natives?
Well,
we did. We did Gaga. Our other girl in the pop realm is Miss.
Let me pull them up because we're basically gonna look at a couple different charts, because actually, Shakira,
very iconic.
Yeah, so Shakira, I'm not gonna show charts that aren't AA rated because T. But Shakira, I love her. Body down. Always
made an entire song out of getting cheated on. Mars,
honestly,
literally
revenge.
Entire thing, and gave the money to the person that helped her snitch.
Yeah, another thing with that person with Mars and Capricorn is Nicki Minaj, and I feel like her whole career is literally having enemies.
Pioneered.
Yeah, like
an entire.
She create like the female rap game is different because of Nicki Minaj. Like,
and the same thing with literally breaking the mold of presence.
yeah.
Like breaking an entire
A
industry
woman
of like
had never
men.
done that
like,
before.
Like Missy Elliott did the thing. Like Missy Elliott gave us like a little thing. You know, we have a lot that came before her that opened the door to that.
Absolutely. Like there was.
But I definitely think Nicki was like, in your face, I'm not gonna go away, and hit the mainstream sphere in a way that no other female rapper kind of has done.
There had literally never been a woman on her level before.
Which once again affirms like the Martian, like Mars Saturn promise of like, I'm going to create a legacy off this thing that nobody else has done.
Yeah. And and not just that, but she just released like
another
like
Friday
high heels on my tippies.
Like
no,
the way
she's a permanent
stamina,
fixture.
The stamina,
it's insane. Like that's another thing too, is like the Mars and Cap, like the enemies portion of that.
Half of her songs are like dissing her
literally
existent and non-existent enemies. Like she's
like,
about that life, and she's letting you know that she's about it. You know,
she really is. Like she said it with her whole chest, and that's a big thing about Mars and Cap that we said. It's like you're never gonna have to like question if they're authentic with it,
because they'll let you know.
Yeah.
Our next girl is
Blanco.
No, Megan Fox. Let's do a little quick.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Let's show her chart. So let me go ahead and pull up Megan Fox's chart for y'all because she has a good rated birth time. So we're gonna show it if we have it.
We have on the ascendant. Miss Tat in the second decante, and she is definitely a larger than life kind of like fixture.
Mars
and
and Capricorn on the ascendant, like she has taken life by the balls.
Like no fucks. The same trine to the sun and to Mercury by whole sign, and a sextile to Jupiter in Pisces. Yeah, so there once again you get the morbid, weird kind of like sex,
earthy,
vixen, like bad bitch energy from her, and the scenes that she's most known for, she's burning her tongue. Yeah, literally burning her tongue.
And especially everything that's happened recently with her relationship with Machine Gun Kelly,
and the rituals and the magic and the whole like fantasy of it.
We all remember the moment when they were like in an interview and he was like talking about astrology, and she was like, no, you're this and this, and we're like, she's a girl.
And then doing the whole, and she admitted to doing blood rituals with him for like love magic. Now, like, all of these things that you see are very dark and morbid. Yeah. Like, they're very, like, so insanely in love and obsessive with the existence that they have within themselves that they carry that. Like, when you look at Megan, you could see her in an entire white outfit and you would still be like, there's something about this woman's eyes that lures me. There's something, like, provocative about the existence of this person. And it's not only to sexualize her, but it's because she uses that, she has effectively used that vixen-esque thing to create this aura that, like, you don't fuck with her. You don't fuck with her because you don't even know what she really even does. Like,
that Mars on the ascendant, like in Capricorn, is so powerful. Like how you said, like the provocative nature about it, like not even sexually, it's like her existence is provocative to people, and it's like she doesn't literally have to do anything or say anything.
She lives in your fantasy.
Yeah, she doesn't even have to put anything on for it to just already automatically be there. That's who she is.
And that insane. Literal sun is on Algol, which says something a whole lot about that. Yeah. But then you look at the ruler. So if you would look at Mars and Cap, you would look at Jupiter because Saturn is in Sagittarius. Yep. So Saturn is debilitated in a fire sign in retrograde. Okay, I don't really want like a major structure. I really just want to live by my own faith. Jupiter and Pisces got you with that girl
100%.
Because it can witness her. System. It can witness her. Like literally witnesses her, and it's like, oh, you have a fantasy. Let's become the fantasy on the screens of 1,000 people.
Absolutely.
You know, like,
and that's a very like third house thing as well, because like Pisces is her third house. That's like such a real thing. It's like you are now this face of all of these different personas and all these different fantasies that you can now see in these characters.
And if we go by whole signs, Saturn would be in its joy in the 12th.
In its joy, yeah.
So it's like not having an issue with it being that like, oh, what is that? Like she's an enchantress, or like you definitely know she gets that about her, about the way she conquers things. It's very shady, you know,
because she comes in and commands a room. You know, like she's there, you know she's there.
Like I live. Now let's go to our next girl, Miss Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Now with Miss Katy
actually,
Perry,
let's go to Albert first.
Please,
Let's go to
Albert.
We're gonna go to Miss Albert first.
Miss Albert Einstein,
Yeah,
the dog,
so
only.
Yeah, so I literally love this chart. I mean, it's Albert Einstein, right? Like,
down.
Yeah, I love this, especially also a Cancer rising.
She kind of eats having Mars near her degree of exaltation in the seventh.
Honestly, though, yeah, like also a Cancer rising like Edwin with Mars in Capricorn in the 7th. But like you have all this stuff up top in like Pisces, Aries, like it's
You could tell she would have been the first to do it.
Literally the first to do it.
Want to check her on it.
Literally, like Moon in Sag, like down in the 6th house. Like, what do you know Albert Einstein for? Their work. Legitimately, like
and
I mean,
lived every single day. Like had to have like a life where their work was the only thing that mattered. Like I don't think the 9th, 10th house power of that and the like sustainability of that to be like everyone is going to know what I did because what I did is going to be foundational. That square between the moon and the sun where you're having like someone bring something that might have not even been believed at the time and having the issue of having to like affirm through action. Fire, you know, that literal action.
This is possible. This is possible.
Literally,
it can be
and
done.
having that difficulty, but then you have like this interesting relationship between the 6th and the 10th, where like all the planets in the 10th are being delayed by Saturn due to literal time. Like time had to go through in order for this person's like entire vision and things that they've been writing about to come into fruition. Because the more and more time passes since they passed away, people look back at Albert Einstein's work and it's like, they were the first to like find the strings of basically the half of our electronic like era
all of our
existence, you know?
And I feel like that's a major part of that like fallen Saturn up in the 10th house experience of like there are so many people that don't even understand how influential these things have been because they are now foundationally part of your everyday life that you don't have to think about them. That essentially kind of how we were talking about that dignity thing with planets is like they go into autopilot. And so it's like there aren't people, I mean there probably are people that are still waxing poetic about how great Albert Einstein is all the time like in the science world, but like a normie ass person might not really think about Einstein much because everything that they incorporated is all just like part of our day-to-day life now. And like their moon is in the only place in Sagittarius that's safe. Like that second decan is the only place where the moon isn't like going through the literal gig and it has the ability to bring insight and like think of the insight that Sagittarius brings and think of like literally being one of the first persons to like flick the fire of electricity and being too quick on that, like being too early for that, like literally having the dream of a world that we're living in now because of the things that he knew could be done that were possible like crazy, literally Aries down ruled by an exalted Mars that literally wanted to get to the bottom of it. Absolutely, like it gives just dedicated her whole life to one thing, to the creation and the betterment and of died the world. With what bitches just writing dissertations on how wrong she was and like literally their whole life was based with big opposition. Like Saturn promises one thing, and even here you have a Saturn in a day chart which is more constructive because they were born at night. Saturn in the night. But then you have Mars. Do you have Mars in the day? So that 7th house, Mars by those day. Colleagues were ripping her ass. They were talking hella shit on our girl. Yeah, no, they. You see a case. It was messy down. Super messy. Now let's do Katy Perry. Our girl. Now our larger than life girl are like doing a residency in Las Vegas with the weirdest outfits ever. Insane. Like this chart is stamina. Oh my god. Saturn. So yeah, if y'all, the Katy Perry chart is the Scorpio rising with basically everything there, ruled by the moon, Mercury, Saturn, yes, and Pluto, and the South Node, yes ma'am. Ruled by Mars in Capricorn in the 3rd, basically conjunct Jupiter. Like the girls who get it. She basically wants her life on a stage. Is what you can get like here. The drama, the impact. And once like Gaga, the terrible love. Yes. Terrible love. Yeah. Gets broken up with before she's about to get on a stage with 100,000 people looking at her. Yeah. Like, and then has to deal with that real time. That is Scorpio. Like has to real time hide the emotion. to go into this intense performative place to be able to sell.
Which isn't even like a fun open concert. Like, remember, when we talk about stage things, like you've been on a stage,
yeah,
it's really just blocking that has to go perfectly so that the show flow goes.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun about performances other than when the artist gets to live the experience of it.
Right.
But it's really a very like ABC. Prop has to go here because pyro has to go there. You're gonna change
person
into
has
this
to
outfit.
enter from this side, leave this side.
And having that as a part of your life is actually very stressful because if you're the main artist, it's your entire job to have that sell.
Yeah.
Like, bitch, whether that shit goes up, whether the flight person, none of that matters because it goes back to you.
Absolutely.
And her having to shut that down because of love at one of the most pivotal kind of like stages in her career, because that's when she was in her like
she was building.
peak fame, kind of, you know, California Girls era. It's very interesting because the bitch has, once again, stamina.
She does.
One thing a Martian will do is carry it through.
They'll keep going. Yeah, like
That's it.
A Mars and Cap will keep going. And that's another thing too about her career, and even a couple of the other people's careers that we've talked about that are like musicians and artists, is they have these long withstanding careers. They have like essentially like eras, if you will, of like times that they release certain things, they create different types of music, they elevate, they evolve, and they bring themselves to the table for such a long period of time.
And then they loop it and do it over again.
We live for the loop back. And they just keep running it back over and over and over again and being willing to produce more and create more because they just have this unending well of creative energy that they can just keep making things, that they can just keep putting them out. Like,
I live, and to use like Mercury, like the moon just had passed Mercury and was touching Mars, like using the voice and having the stamina with the voice to do that. I live. And then we have the icon.
So we are literally going to use the chart example of the king himself because he has Mars in Capricorn. So obviously we had to shout out the king himself, Chris Brennan, our god.
Here we have
whose book Hellenistic Astrology: The Study of Fate and Fortune is part of my laptop stack right now.
Bury that. A cute little Aquarius rising
with moon in the first house
in the third decan of Aquarius, which means she binds herself to her studies, girl.
Period. Ruled by that Saturn in Scorpio in the 10th house.
Who answers to
all the Mars.
So there you have a situation once again where you have mutual reception between Mars in Capricorn and then Saturn in Scorpio.
Yeah.
And you have someone who is dedicated and fixed towards a specific branch of a study.
I mean, speaking of longevity of careers, actually though, like Chris has been in the game making
for a minute,
like studying astrology
and not giving you like pop astrology like broad. Like this person has specifically zoned and honed down the lineage as
the tradition, the history,
I'm gonna like drop out of school to go chase this thing, to go chase like a branch of study. That means they were looking for the structure early on because they knew it was integral to the mission and purpose.
Like
because if this person wouldn't have found Kepler and that whole fantasy, this could have been an entire different like
we would be living in a whole different world. Like the traditional revival has been so integrally shaped by Chris.
Someone bringing something from like the past into conversation through the use of like hidden older tradition, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, like the malefic interaction
and
is
the reason
so
why I love Jupiter in Capricorn. That first decan of Jupiter in Capricorn is actually ruled by Jupiter. You can call it on Asclepius in that decan. Yeah. But Jupiter in the first decan of Capricorn has the ability to change like almost societal kind of moments where it has like the ability to uplift someone into an entire different kind of like state of
new
being.
Reality. Yeah,
like literally due to what they're doing. So like etching and sketching a new layout is very interesting here.
Yeah, like the Jupiter-Mars relationship, both of them being in Capricorn in the 12th. Like it's so crazy, the like far-reaching impact. And I think this is like a really good spectrum, like a comparison here, because like our world, if you're here on my pod, is like we are living in the Renaissance. We are in the traditional revival. We are literally living, breathing history right now. And then if you go to a part of the internet where people have no idea what's going on, or like in the real world where someone just the other day I was explaining whole sign houses and they were like, well, that's not how I do astrology, and I've been doing astrology for this many years. And I'm like, I don't know what part of the world you live in, but this is my part of the world and I love it here. And so it's like that 12th house, like the Jupiter,
like
the Jupiter Mars of like the widespread power, but then also people being like, who the fuck are you?
Like literally having Mars in a place that shows occult things in a way that many people don't understand, because I think astrology veils itself perfectly in hiding in
Plain sight. Plain sight.
Like astrology doesn't mind being that like shitty, not shitty in a bad way, just shitty not in a informative, expansive way of just being like, oh, Scorpio sex. Like astrology doesn't mind that because it's almost like its own veil.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
like when you find people like people like Chris, you have people who are like almost keys to hidden esoteric things. You know, like pockets of like scorpionic things that like, oh, you have to be very still to hear it, to understand it, to really get into it. I think Chris has a really good ability of just wanting to bring that forward and giving it life via what they just like, which is weird because this person's just like, oh, I fuck with traditional shit, and I fuck with traditional astrology, and I just decided to like be consistent and have like 300 episodes of a podcast. Anyone who does podcasts knows that having 300 episodes of a singular show,
insanity.
Gag, bitch. Hats off to you because that's dedication to what you're doing.
It's the longevity. It's literally the longevity. It's like Mars and Saturn like literally shook hands and we're like, we're in this for the long run. But then
having to go, I really need to start realizing that doing 4-hour podcasts is detrimental to my health. Like literally that part. Once again, right back to even me and like the whole eating thing we were talking about. Like choosing the Martian thing instead of the body thing. Like Saturn isn't necessarily here for anything other than 10th house matters.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like Saturn
100%.
in Scorpio is very obsessed with the relationship to the hidden thing that has to be uncovered. Absolutely. And that's the entire like basis of their astrology. They're not giving us astrology based on the like, oh, Maria. Like this person doesn't give a fuck about anything other than you being able to understand that traditional astrology existed. The rest have a ball. Yeah. Like the rest, like I'll have different people with different perspectives, but like if you look at their scope, it's literally one-on-one traditional Hellenistic. This existed, and this is why this is what astrology was before anything it is now, and anything it was before what you and I are having.
And
now.
Not just that, but this is like in my opinion, this is a very Scorpio Capricorn thing in this relationship is to come with the receipts. Receipts. Like
that's why she's like, I don't have time to learn new shit because I'm still finding receipts to back the fucking shit that I've been talking for 10 years.
Yeah, literally. Like, we're still finding 2,000
y'all young astrologers receipts. Can have that. I am gonna sit here and fight with the people who fundamentally think this is not even real. Right. You get what I'm saying? Like, absolutely. He doesn't mind living in that margin and being kind of like that spokesperson absolutely. For that. Which I think is also very interesting. So powerful. Because people get frustrated and they're like, well, why aren't you talking about new things? Like, why aren't you trying out new techniques? Because it's like,
y'all still don't get it.
You get like Scorpio is about one passionate thing, like to the god.
It's like I'll get there when y'all all get it. That this is like put some respect on my name.
Because then you look at like Copic and their way of studying. They're everywhere. Right. You get what I'm saying? Like the doll lived for the Vedic fantasy. The doll does remediation or tradition. Yeah. Like, and they have a way of embodying that into their teaching. So that's why with like Chris, I literally bow to people who are that fucking dedicated to their shit. So I'm like, yo, you're a bad bitch through and through. Nobody can tell you shit because if you have enough fucking spit in your mouth to go on for 6 hours about something that you love, I can't tell you shit.
No, and that's so real. Like the unwavering
love for what they study.
The passion, the commitment, the dedication, it's intense.
I live.
And it's like, it's literally... And when I knew, whenever I was doing the Mars episode, that I knew that I had to use Chris as an example for Mars and Cap because he's like such an iconic example for this with like the Mars-Saturn relationship and everything that it contributes to and everything, like how widespread and potent and impactful his work has been and will continue to be. Like, he didn't just write a book like this book, like this
like she really gave us, like, you know, when Plato and like Aristotle were chilling in the garden and everyone was listening. Like she gave us that digitally during an age where the world was shut down. Yeah. And literally all you had was like 6-hour-long astrology podcast archives. Like it was really giving like sit down and listen. Yeah. No. You literally sit down and listen. You got nowhere to go. Yeah. That's it.
Like the podcast, the book, like the literal
abundance of resource.
Yeah, and how all of these things are now essentially like building the history and like contributing to this like lineage of information
that had to get revived.
Yeah. Like the passing down of that, like the Capricorn of that, of like, I'm building this so that y'all don't have to rebuild it, essentially. The revival Scorpio, like this was dead, this was not acknowledged, people did not know that this was a fucking thing, to now the Capricorn of that, like, I'm going to build this so strong and so well that nobody else hopefully has to rebuild it, because hopefully I build it so strong. Yeah, hopefully the structure that I'm building is so strong that no one else has to rebuild it, because no one else has to question it after this. And like...
Period, comma, no blank. Now our next girl.
No.
A little bit of a messier chart.
Yeah, this is messy.
She was asking me about Capricorn natives.
Yeah, because I was like, let's just talk about Mars and Cap people, you know?
Okay, so Griselda Blanco, if you guys don't know, is a notorious drug lord or queen from Colombia, if I'm not mistaken. She is basically like in ties and in line with Pablo Escobar, and basically that whole era of like drug lords. See, she was born in Cartagena, Colombia, and it's the country's north coast. She and her mother, Ana Blanco, moved to Medellin. So basically, entire Colombian queen became one of the most notorious drug lords in our like the 90s. Yeah. And was like, you know, smuggling drugs is not good. Don't do it, kids. But like work.
But people, I also, this is something that I always, and I think this is also a very Mars and Cap thing of like, why is this a law? Yeah. Why is this a law? Like people ask for drugs. I mean, there obviously are really bad drugs and stuff, but
she really popped off because she was like a smooth criminal. Like you couldn't catch her kind of energy. So it wasn't like she was easy to catch. It wasn't like there was, you know, she was a little runner for a higher up. No, she actually became and was like one of the first female like drug lords to be captured and wanted. And the chart that we have, she's about to show it because it's actually a very interesting chart.
I have her set for noon, so don't look at houses and things, but just
we're literally looking at her. We're looking at a 13th degree Mars in Cap.
Oof. Yeah.
Okay. We have a Mars in Cap, and that's opposing Jupiter in Cancer. So literally like being a very, very renowned person in your area for doing Martian things. And it has a very interesting case for Mercury. And
Mercury
as executor of merchandise.
No, and like the Saturn, because something that I thought a lot about with Saturn in Gemini is like the lawmaking and like the transmission of things that are like essentially against the law. Because Gemini has this big like movability factor, and
being able to do it with a square to Saturn by Venus and Pisces. So being like a hot vixen that's like, just being able to get away with it because of your allure. Miss Griselda Blanco was very interesting, and what's also interesting about her is that she became like a theoretical piece. Like there's so many series about her. There's so many like fake documentaries that just create this image. She became a character of like a womanizer, you know, like a bad bitch that just like slayed and, you know, smuggled drugs across the world. Which is a very Martian story, like Mars-Mercury story ruling everything down.
I was about to say, that's giving a very Mars-Mercury story of like the smuggling, the sneaking, the getting the things from here to another place without anybody seeing them or knowing about it.
And then being the first woman to be a part of that like lore in the Latin world. Yeah, it was daggy. She was iconic. I mean, like it's 1943, so like you're looking at like the 60s. Like so it was very much like the New York mafia energy from a woman, and you're just like,
who are you?
And then when I looked her chart up, I was like, Mars and Cap. Okay, I don't believe you. I mean, you had to do what you had to do, girl. You had to do what you had to do, girl.
That is actually like a very resonant thing within Mars and Cap is this feeling that you're like, I'm doing what I have to do, no matter who it is, no matter what they're doing or what the purpose and situation like thing is that they're doing. The overwhelming and like inevitable fire and need to do that thing no matter what, you're like, I'm doing what I have to do. This isn't like necessarily like maybe the most glamorous choice, but I'm getting it done. I'm doing what has to be done.
And she was approaching a full moon, like an eclipse, and a literal eclipse. So this person, you can tell that Rahu, you know, K2 situation's not the cutest or the fun. So the entire story,
the moon on the south node, y'all,
like literally crossing it. Like her mother did not have a fun time having her either. So it's a very interesting native and story to follow, which gives for like a malefic messy story. I don't think there's that many, but
the malefic mess is so real. Like it is.
The malefic mess is very interesting.
It's so very real.
Is that it for charts?
I think that is it for our charts. Yeah. Do you? I guess like. Anything that we want to say or bring up before we wrap up? Anything that you want to say for people with Mars and Cap?
People girl, don't get taken to the Martian dump.
Anything you want to say to anybody who loves someone with it? Yeah.
Mars and Cap, like
anything that we haven't talked about?
It's all about understanding the structured but not structured nature that placement has, like the ability to take action, and that doesn't necessarily mean they should always be taking action for others. You know, maybe it's because I have it in the 7th house and I always end up like
it's for someone else
and activating other people in my life. But I think Mars and Cap kind of gets given that task a lot of being obviously the cardinal initiator. So it's like understanding the structures that the Mars and Cap person or thing or situation that you're in has will allow you to understand how far you can push or pull. You get what I'm saying? So I definitely think understanding underlying structures and feelings to someone with a Mars and Cap gives you kind of like a scope on why they're doing it. For example,
like the motivation.
If you don't understand the stars, you're not going to understand half of our life.
Absolutely.
That's a Capricorn thing in my life, because I'm like, well, I'm not going to go out during a balsamic moon.
Right.
But unless you understand that structure, you can literally just look at it and be like, oh, well, they're just following the stars. It makes no sense. But there's an entire structure that made that decision get taken or that action be.
I had a very interesting conversation with my mom recently because she was asking me why I did something, and I was like, oh, this is like the planetary day, that's why I'm doing it. And she was like, you really live your whole life according to the planets, don't you? And this was like the day that Mars moved into Cap, we had this convo.
And you were like,
yes.
That's my structure. That's my structure for action.
And my mom has her sun in Capricorn too, interestingly, so it led to this whole interesting convo about it. But like, that Mars in Capricorn, like, this is why it is this way.
And even positive and negatively. Like, literally for something to, like, for example, if you break something like loyalty or trust, if a Martian breaks that even within themselves, that's literally part of the structure. Part of, like, the whole reason for looking at the situation. So I think Mars in Capricorn has a really nice, cold, almost reptile way of looking at situations where it's like, okay, this is what I created. This is the choice I take that got me here. This is how I'm going to deal with it, positively or negatively.
Yeah. Almost like taking yourself personally out of it. You're like, what is the situation without me personally being
there? You really become like an objective in your own storyline almost. So it's like, that's how detached Mars and Capricorn can get from like literal reality.
Yeah.
And like, because remember, Saturn binds you up so much that you're like, how can I become a tool to facilitate that which is the structure that is me, the structure that I'm doing, you know, like
for sure.
That kind of like Swiss knife energy is something that Mars and Cap struggles with because it really exacerbates it. If it's not like correctly kind of gauged or placed, you know, in the martial spheres or having that like remediation.
If it doesn't have an outlet,
So it's like for a Mars and Cap person, like have that moment. For me, it's like my paintbrushes and doing really sharp designs. Like that is very Mars and Cap, like trying to like perfectly copy something to the other side of your face, like something that literally provides struggle. Like the thing with Mars is it has to make you feel like you're struggling in order for it to feel fulfilling, almost. You know, like
you're not actually successful without
a struggle. Like Mars and Cap is like
that can get so toxic too, because then you like unnecessarily put yourself through struggle because you feel like you didn't deserve success without the struggle. You're like, why?
And then you're stuck in a grudge to the struggle without realizing that it didn't have to necessarily like be the difficult mode in which the layout was placed in.
It didn't have to be that bad.
Mars and Cap people, for anyone that loves them, will purposely put themselves in those pickles almost to learn something. Mars likes to, in order for Mars to learn, it has to disrupt. So it's like literally consistently looping yourself into that can be quite draining for everything and everyone around you. So as a Mars and Cap person who daily has to deal with that,
and
we're in the mud. Like we're in the mud whenever Mars is in Cancer, like the opposite. And Mars is going retrograde in Cancer, so it's like know it's gonna be
the Leo like, Cancer retrograde coming this
and
year.
And also remember, like not even to bring outer planets, but like if you're Mars in anything in Cap or you have anything in Cap, you definitely want to look like the major 20-year arc with like the whole Pluto gig. Like what did Pluto have doing when it was like on the degree of exaltation and Mars was meeting up with it? Like how does that entire story of if Pluto is something that you look at in charts, laying that underneath the veil that Mars and Cap has done, Mars in Cap has been doing such deep, ugly, dirty, transformative shit, you know?
Yeah, I have...
Blank will damage. Yes.
No, not me literally being about to talk about the Cap transit with the Pluto and the Saturn, and then the malware comes up again. That's crazy, because it's like all of the Capricorn journeys that we've been going through. Like, I mean, yeah, we don't have that much time left of Pluto and Capricorn. Like, we're getting at the very end of that.
How have the last 20 years been? Type shit. Like, when you ask someone who's lived, for example, like me, I think I'm too young. Like, you ask someone who's like in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, like, ask them how that Mars in Cap, like I would love to talk to someone who has Mars in Cap, who has had that, like, trigger kind of like synced in their life, because it had to have been profound, just because Mars in Cap brings struggle with such profound teachings, which is weird. Because right now with Saturn in Pisces, it's almost like Mars is the only thing that's giving sight. Because remember, Mars was burnt up in Scorpio. Mars didn't necessarily like have the ability. Mars is going to be seen in the sky.
That Scorpio Kazemi was...
Mars is going to be seen in the sky and have its heliacal rising in Capricorn.
My God.
What the fuck does that have to say for the ability of Mars to have sight after its entire rebirth? Post all that shit, like third decan of Scorpio into first decan of fucking Cap.
Insane.
You're trying to bring down a new body because the grudge from the old shit that you were dealing with is still stuck. Like, you're still going into like retrograde and dark phases, having to banish off the same ghost almost. That's
like
that energy.
You're having to revisit the same things.
Like going into the underworld and having to deal with the same spirits that don't want to like rest or don't want to like dive into.
You're
the
like,
space.
cool, same thing again. Which is a whole journey that you then have to like take yourself there, go through. And it's
Saturnian and cyclical. Like if you really look at it, like that whole having to banish is such a Mars and Cap like keyword to me, because that's the only placement that I even feel has like the balls almost archetypally to take a structure to complete an entire kind of cycle that if you really look at it.
Even speaking of cycles, funny enough, the first episode of the Mars series that I did was with Shahir, and it was the Mars in Cancer episode. So like this is marking the like official halfway point of the Mars cycle of the Spicy Rendezvous. And so
Jackie.
Because I started it like at the end of the Mars in Gemini retrograde, and I was not going to start with Mars in Gemini because I was like, we're already so done with it. We'll loop back to this, and this will be the last one that I do of the series. And so I was like, no, I'm going to start with Mars in Cancer, the fall. And so now this is like the exalted like demarcation of the halfway point in like the Mars cycle, because I specifically did that as well. I don't even know if I mentioned this on the pod, that I specifically started with the Mars in Cancer following the Mars in Gemini retrograde, because the next Mars retrograde is the Leo Cancer one. And so I specifically wanted to utilize the like Mars cycle that was between those two retrogrades to then like loop back to it.
Circle. Mars.
To go through the full
before it
cycle.
gets to that cycle. Oh, bitch. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's like the main thing. And then like Mars days and Mars nights are very important, girl. If you have an exalted Mars. And if you have an exalted Mars, you can do a whole lot of fucking witchcraft.
True.
Like
you can assert your will.
You can literally do so much, and not witchcraft as in like, you know, no, you can actually conjure up the dead, bitch. You can conjure up spirits. Like you have the will and ability to do that kind of interesting Saturnian thing. So it's like, I don't know, use it, learn it, wield it. It's like another option instead of using like your martial influence for like asserting anger. Like
truly, because we are going through a Mars absolute crisis in our world today. Like
find other ways to channel Mars, like Mars in Scorpio. Like it's literally an entire sorcerer. It's not like you're not angry. No, you're putting your anger into something that you're gonna alchemize and give and make, and you know, there's layers here. It's like with Mars and Cap, it's like, oh, you can be a witch, but what does that know? That means you have the ability
you can do things.
To commune with elements. You have the ability to like actually cause rippling change in your own life that will bring responsibility that you might want in your own life, because right now you might be living a life that is ruled by Saturn, the opposite, like by the structure that you have to deal with. So someone becoming like a sorcerer might just be like taking their own power back type shit. You got what I'm saying? So like there's levels to like the Martian I can do, I will take action too. So like,
I am capable of.
Look at your Martian sign if you want to like get with or fuck with a Mars and Cap person, and understand how it's going to like trigger. Like, is it an opposition? Is it a sextile? Is it a trine? You know, like what is your relationship to someone who has an exalted ability to piss you off, help you, you know, or allow you to sever something. Because like when you look at humans, you can also see like talismans. So like
yes, every human is a talisman of their birth chart.
For real. So it's like you have someone like Megan Fox, who's, you know, son on motherfucking Algo, and like it's like her head can get cut off and be put on a plate, and it would probably repel against people. There you have Gaga. It's like she's going to wear red, she's gonna do blood, she's gonna do sharp heels and crazy things. It's like when you look at Mars in those specific places, you will get clear indicators of how
it's being done.
The person wields it, because we didn't even touch, but like how many like football players have I seen that have like Mars and Cap?
There's a lot.
Like having exalted
like athletes,
Mars.
Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, like even to mention it now, like it's crazy the athleticism that comes within Mars and Capricorn.
And that's why, like, when you look at these women, because, you know, we're dolls here, so we looked at women. One man, because Chris Brennan's that cunty.
Also Albert Einstein, but I mean...
Albert Einstein's a doll. She created
she created... Yeah, that's neither here nor there.
These women are not on stage, like, having... You know, like a Lana Del Rey moment where they're just like slowly dancing to the
No, they're putting it in.
They're putting entire stamina, body, and stealth into what they're doing.
And it becomes like the longevity and the endurance of that lends itself to being able to do a physical
body
pursuit.
work.
Yeah, like a physical pursuit that you can pursue
like,
for
go
so
back
long.
to Gaga breaking her entire hip on stage and finishing the choreography.
Yeah. It's insane.
I don't want to hear nothing else. That's exalted bitch shit. Like, that's real bad bitch shit right there. Like,
for real.
Mars and Cancer wouldn't have done that. Mars and Cancer would have gone home. Okay. So it's just like, those are the examples that like I've grown up with and lived for, because Gaga, like, funny enough, imagine being a Mars and Cap and then loving and like having muses that resemble those placements.
Absolutely.
Like, look at the people in your life that like inspire you and shit, and look at your own Mars sign and how like they resemble like the actions and virtues that you aspire to take action in. Because it's like my whole life I'm like, I want to wear a meat suit to the market, girl. Like, I want to go do like incubate myself in an egg for 3 days just for a performance. Like,
and that's so Capricorn. That's like, let me utilize this plan to see how I can put this in my life. Like, that's so. And that's really like the Mars and Cap lesson, though, is like, do the thing, figure out why you want to do the thing, and then
take action.
And then do and take action.
You're gonna be the first to do it. You're gonna be weird. You're gonna be everything that Saturn is, the outsider. Mm-hmm. But guess what? They outside looking in. How you hating from outside of the club?
You can't even get in.
Like, that's really the note we end this on.
Oh, we have to tell the people what you have coming up, what you do, what you offer. We have to let the people know.
No, it's a very...
What does Edwin do? What does Edwin offer?
Well...
Edwin serves looks.
No,
Edwin
we definitely
looks.
have, like... I am finishing my practice, so essentially I am so Mars and Cap that I couldn't begin to offer services until I spent like 3 years basically getting ready for it. So like I do have a small, tiny list of clients that I work with very, very personally, but that will soon open. Obviously, like always, I've been doing tarot for like 5 years. So like the girls really do be hitting me up for like, she really is a love tarot expert. I don't know why, but I be giving down on love readings. Like,
for tarot readings?
Yes, like
that's what a lot of my astrology. It's a 7th house thing, baby.
Like I really live. So it's just doing that, and then obviously getting like Paradise After Dark. So like Claim Paradise is like, I would say my beauty muse, but like 3 years ago, I snagged on an election this like username, Paradise After Dark. So it's like, think if Claim, you know, because there's a whole sphere, there's a whole universe, you know, it's a multiverse.
It's the paradise.
And Paradise is like the beauty aspect, and like Paradise After Dark would be like, obviously, the constellations that create paradise. So like having a whole podcast dedicated to that while doing my glam is like what I have in the works and doing. So like obviously doing this pod with Mackenzie was like very cardinal. So if Cancer is where the womb is, then like Capricorn is where like actual manifestation of like what I've been studying, like speaking and like the Martian thing of like, bitch, what the fuck do you know? Because I wasn't gonna hop on and give horoscopes, you know, with like one-on-one astrology things.
That's not what we do here.
That's not what we do. So we had to
we
go give a couple offerings to Hermes at the crossroads and do a little bit of Orpheus callings, you know, while the brightest star in Sirius was elongated and won't come back for 30 years. It was giving very much that, you know, we had to live the going and living the initiation.
Yeah, the experience.
The Eleusinian mysteries, I could
Yeah.
even say, is definitely what's happened to my relationship with astrology. And translating it for people in Spanish is also major. And just
Yeah, because
being
she's a
queer,
being
Latina, being queer and being an astrologer, like going to Norwalk, we
Norwalk.
quickly realized that like there's no representation.
There's an old wave and then there's a new wave.
And we're here to cause that. And like shout out to Laura because she's facilitated a lot of us to get there and to go there. So it's like, I don't know, I'm guessing this is the renaissance of astrology. And like I personally have chosen talismanic and electional and magical astrology to kind of be my root, just because it's where I come from in Puerto Rico.
Of course.
And yeah, that's what we're on. Like, I really is giving, like, when we're really giving lectures in Norwalk, this is the only free one you could catch, mamas. Just kidding. But yeah, it's definitely a fun time to be doing astrology and to be in community with other astrologers. Because, like, the Renaissance is here, bitch.
It is here.
Like,
it really is.
Beyonce did not lie. Like,
she prophesied.
She actually very much prophesied. Like, the Renaissance, we were feeling it when like we were getting that juicy intro to Project Hindsight and like that whole resuscitate it, revive it. But now that she's alive and breathing,
like
she has spectrums of color to show.
Absolutely.
I feel like astrology is only like we're only getting started once all over again.
For sure.
I personally feel that. I feel like, you know, the girl sphere with Saturn and Pisces and, you know, getting hunted for it. Bitch, you have to get hunted for something. I've been getting hunted.
Saturn, Neptune's coming.
Yeah, like, I've been getting hunted for my existence since I got in this bitch. So it's like, hi, astrologers. Yes, you're doing something that is Saturnian.
Yeah.
You're doing something that will outcast
Absolutely.
you. You're doing something that will put you at the outskirts of society because that is what Saturn does.
Absolutely.
And Saturn has
sorry, you're not included anymore.
You get what I'm saying? Like, you will also be enriched when Saturn makes you go through that, and that's when you'll really start getting them good delineations, okay? Because Saturn ingressing into my 9th house shows that, screams that. And like, what was the first thing that we saw? Like, there's fortune telling laws here in Florida. Like, there's real heavy shit that like the more conservative a state gets, the more we can see things like what we're doing right now get limited, not because we're not supposed to be doing it,
but because someone else is imposing their will.
Oh, let's go right back to Mars and God.
Someone else is imposing their will on how we want to live.
And that Saturnian structure is not going to fly with us.
That's just not going to work.
Oh, mama, I see myself. I see myself at the U.S. Supreme Court reading Firmicus, reading Dorotheus, reading like, this was actually written.
I would like to testify.
By Hermes Trismegistus, way before your Bible was. So which one's Kantier? Oh, religious beliefs down. Religious beliefs down. Like, I will be reading the fucking hymn to Venus in the court of law and being like, this is my religious belief. How dare you try to limit it?
Literally.
I'm not telling them their fortune. I'm telling them their religious scope.
I'm screaming.
Mama, you see how Mars and Cap I am that I already see myself in the trial. Literally fighting for astrology. Like, I was there already. Like, I came back already. Like, I already took the stand from the building and did the magic to win the case. Like,
it's it's like the history and like the lineage of
Saturn doesn't lie. Saturn doesn't lie. So it's like, why run from her when you can prepare for her?
Yeah, truly a Saturn question. Ooh.
Well, we definitely will be having a part 2.
We'll loop back.
We'll loop back in a Mars cycle.
I'm so grateful that you have been here. I couldn't have asked for anyone else to be my first like in studio guest. For the vibes, for the experience, for
the placements. Like, it's giving the cardinal axis.
It really is. Like,
you went from just Mars in Cancer, audio only, to like Mars in Capricorn. Like,
we're here,
actual
we're living.
Physical,
we're
like
here,
real life shit. Like,
it's
you're
so
really
exciting.
You're there, and we can't see what other topics you bring in the pod because you really just be doing it. And she will be having a function near us. She will be doing a gig. She got something going on, mom.
Y'all already know. She stays booked and busy,
Down.
and that's the Mars life.
Hello,
booked and busy. Thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for being funky. I will see y'all the next time our fates weave together.
Oh, that was Kanti.